Chapter 76. It was just a small peek, so she didn't need to spend too much effort on it. The murderer had changed his mind, and this wasn't something she could control. Yarrow immediately understood and felt that Xiao Jin's words were inconceivable. At least this girl's prediction ability wasn't just strong. Based on her previous experience, she could at least know what would happen in a month. A month was too scary. Unless there was a direction. She couldn't know everything. Otherwise, such an ability would be too heaven-defying among the spiritualists. Yarrow pursed her lips and smiled faintly, expressing her intention. I'm really curious about Miss Xiao. Xiao Jin, don't be curious. I'm poisonous. The more you know, the worse it will be for you. Yarrow, her mouth twitched, and she gave up on normal communication. She only asked, Miss Xiao, do you know about the existence of spiritualists? She went straight to the point and locked her gaze on Xiao Jin. I know. At this moment, the juice was served. She reached out and took a sip. Her mouth was full of sweetness. Aren't you from the spirit group? Oh, spirit group, that's a very vivid name. Yarrow's expression changed slightly, and her smile faded. It seems that Miss Xiao knows a lot. Xiao Jin, I know a lot more than you think. She smiled and took a sip of the fruit juice. Since you've treated me to fruit juice, I'll tell you something. Don't think about investigating me. I said that you don't have the ability, so you don't have the ability. Instead of paying attention to me, you might as well catch more demonized spiritualists to contribute to me. Yarrow's face twitched, knowing that she was completely open. So when my team went to catch that demonized spiritualist last time, Xiao Jin waved her hand. Hey, that has nothing to do with me. I just happened to pass by and picked up some things. Besides, what's the use of capturing them? If you capture them, you'll be contributing to others. In the future, if there are any spirit reader masters, just tell me and I'll capture them. It's better to give them to me than to others. Who knows, I might even be able to provide you with help. Yarrow's expression changed. Miss Xiao, what do you mean? We'll take care of it ourselves. Get rid of it. Xiao Jin lifted his eyelids and glanced at him. Are you sure those demonized spiritualists will be dealt with by you? Yarrow, indeed, that was not the case. After they captured the people, they would hand them over to the headquarters. The headquarters would be responsible for dealing with the demonized psychic master. Over the years, there had been no exceptions. Now, Xiao Jin's words sent a chill down Yarrow's spine. She sat up straight and said seriously, Miss Xiao, I've said too much. Xiao Jin knew that she was a member of the spirit group, so she wouldn't believe his words so easily. Besides, the spirit group wasn't her main target right now, so there wasn't much she could investigate. She finished the juice in a few mouthfuls and suddenly showed her phone to Yarrow. Let's add each other as friends. If there's anything, we can talk on WeChat. It'll save you the trouble of tracking me down. Yarrow, she composed herself and took out her phone to scan Xiao Jin's WeChat. After adding her as a friend, Xiao Jin said, Miss He, if you encounter any trouble in the future, you can look for me. However, I don't want money. I just want clues about the demonized spiritualists. Whether it's worth the deal or not depends on Miss He. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Bye-bye, Miss He. She smiled brightly, brimming with the pure aura of life, fresh and beautiful. The girl's bright smile left a deep impression on Yarrow. Chapter 77. After Xiao Jin left, Yarrow added Xiao Jin's WeChat. It's Jin Jin, was a name that would shock anyone who saw it. Yarrow found it hard to imagine that a girl who looked a little cold would have such a cute name. Maybe this was the difference between the internet and the real world. Yarrow wouldn't believe Xiao Jin just because of a few words, and she wouldn't continue to cause trouble for Xiao Jin. At this moment, the headquarters called Yarrow and said that they would send someone to help them, which made Yarrow frown. She didn't think too much about it and decided to go back first. After returning home, Xiao Jin started to train officially. She could use the array to fight the enemy, but she had to train her body. Xiao Jin's body was thin and weak, so she needed to train. She set up an array in the Mu family's house, so she could train more efficiently. During dinner, Musilian and Musichu didn't come home, so she was the only one at home. She received a video call from Xiao Fei. In the video, Xiao Fei was by a house by the sea, holding his phone and smiling brightly at her. It was about the same time as here, and the sky looked darker. She could hear the sound of the sea breeze. "Jin, how are you doing at home today?" Xiao Jin took a sip of soup and said, "Pretty good." "Are Chi Chu and Chi Lian eating with you?" Xiao Jin said honestly, "They're not back yet." Xiao Fei said, "How dare you? What time is it? Why aren't they home yet? Did they start fooling around after their father and I left? Wait for me to give them a call." Xiao Fei didn't restrict them that much, but now that she and Musilian had left, Musichu and Musilian didn't eat at home. She felt that it was too much to leave Xiao Jin alone at home. Xiao Jin. Actually, she wanted to say that it didn't matter if he was there or not. Xiao Fei hung up the video call and called the two of them. Xiao Jin finished his meal and went straight upstairs. Then, he prepared for his physics homework in his room. It was too tragic. While she was reading, Xiao Fei called her again, telling her that he had already asked them to go home. At the same time, she asked about Xiao Jin with concern and exhorted him before hanging up. Xiao Jin noticed a WeChat message when she answered the phone. She clicked on it and saw that the message was from Song Yanqing. "Song Yanqing, Miss Xiao, are you free this weekend?" "Song Yanqing, my father wants to meet you." Since Song Maiyin was looking for Xiao Jin, it probably meant that he had made some progress in his investigation. Xiao Jin thought about it and replied to Song Yanqing. It was from Jin Jinyo. "Okay, I'm free this weekend. Just send me the address." Song Yanqing, "Okay." Seeing that Xiao Jin had accepted his invitation, Song Yanqing arranged it quickly. The specific address was soon sent to Xiao Jin. It was almost the weekend. Xiao Jin received a call from Song Maiyin after class on Friday. He apologized in person, saying that there was a sudden change in the plan. He had to go on a business trip tonight and asked if they could meet tonight. Xiao Jin certainly had no problem with it. Anyway, she was very free now. So, Song Maiyin sent her the address. After school, Xiao Jin got into her driver's car and set off for the place they had agreed on. The driver of the Mu family had also been specially trained and was very sensitive to ordinary things. After a few minutes, he suddenly said, "Miss, someone is following us." Xiao Jin curled her lips and said, "It's okay." Chapter 78. It was none other than Liu Wenmeng who was following her. Song Yunxian had already said that this person needed to be taught a lesson. It seemed that she hadn't taught him enough in the classroom that day. Liu Wenmeng probably wanted to follow her to determine her whereabouts. Perhaps he wanted to see if she would go somewhere else to play. He had chosen a good time today. Xiao Jin was going to meet the father and son of the Song family. Naturally, she wouldn't go home directly. Halfway through the car, he saw Xiao Jin enter an ordinary street. This street was filled with the old city scenery left by the capital. Even now, it still retained the style of the houses of the Republic of China. From the outside, there was nothing special. Xiao Jin got out of the car and walked into one of the houses. She was led in. Liu Wenmeng watched Xiao Jin's driver drive away before getting out of the car. He also wanted to follow and take a look. Unexpectedly, before he could enter the house, someone came forward and reached out to stop him. "I'm sorry, sir. This is private property. Please don't trespass." Liu Wenmeng was dumbfounded. "Private property? This is your private property. This is the main street." They didn't seem to be easy to talk to. "Sir, this is private property. Please step aside." They were all dressed in plain clothes and looked like ordinary people. However, they were tall and had stern faces. They were obviously different from ordinary people. Song Yunxian could tell that they were different. Liu Wenmeng murmured. Of course, he didn't dare to be stubborn. He returned to his car. Those people once again stood near the gate. The gate of the house was wide open. Song Yunxian could vaguely see a beautiful courtyard inside. She couldn't see anything else clearly. Those who could own such a house in such a place must be rich or noble. Liu Wenmeng was a little envious and jealous. Wasn't Qiao Jin just a girl from an ordinary family? How could she come here? Qiao Jin entered the house. Around the courtyard was a square house. Song Shiyin walked out of the hall and greeted her politely. "Miss Qiao, this way please." Qiao Jin nodded. After entering the house, she found that the ordinary house wasn't ordinary at all. The decoration was very elegant. The main color was walnut, and there were many calligraphy and paintings hanging in the lobby. It looked like a rich family had lived here before. "This used to be our Song family's old residence. It's safe and secluded, so it's suitable for talking." Song Shiyin hadn't invited her here for no reason. As he spoke, Song Yanqing walked out from behind the screen at the back of the hall. At that moment, he really felt like an elegant young master. His eye sockets were deep and his eyebrows were long and narrow. He originally looked a little cold, but after being neutralized by his sickly aura, he appeared a little warm and gentle. His complexion didn't look as pale as before, which made him look even more beautiful. Her figure was well proportioned and she stood there tall and straight, just like the most dazzling light in the room. He was wearing a long sky blue coat, like the others, like 2 seasons. He was still extremely cold. Qiao Jin could help him solve this problem. The next time he obtained the death aura, he would have to wait. Seeing Qiao Jin, Song Yanqing smiled widely. "Miss Qiao, hello." His tone was as polite as ever. Compared with the indifference when they first met, there was a little more warmth in his voice. It was his respect for Qiao Jin. Ordinary people would go crazy with joy after talking to Song Yanqing. However, Qiao Jin wasn't a little girl who hadn't seen the world. Chapter 79. Song Yanqing's face was unparalleled in the world. Qiao Jin mainly put everyone in the same position and didn't care much about this kind of beauty. Wrong, he still cared. Beautiful people were easy to look at and make people happy. Qiao Jin nodded. Song Maiyin gestured for her to sit down. "Miss Qiao, please sit." Although Qiao Jin's identity was special, Song Maiyin didn't lose her sense of propriety. She had the strong demeanor of the head of a large family, and she was also respectful and polite to Qiao Jin. Song Yanqing sat next to him. When the father and son stood next to each other, there was a direct comparison. Song Yanqing's mother was famous for being the #1 beauty in the capital when she was young. He had tried his best to pick out his parents' good points and grew up with a face that made people happy. At this moment, he looked at Qiao Jin with indifference and a slight smile on his lips. If anyone else had been stared at by him like this, they would have been in a mess. Qiao Jin was very calm. She only looked at Song Maiyin. "Mr. Song, are you here this time because you have made progress in your investigation?" Song Maiyin looked at her, then tilted her head to look at her son. She then turned back and sighed silently. Indeed. Because he had to go on a business trip tonight, he didn't beat around the bush and told her what had happened in the past. The Song family's origins could be traced back to 100 years ago. At that time, the ancestor was Song Maiyin's great-grandfather. Great-grandfather relied on the chaotic era to make a fortune. At that time, there were still many legends about mysterious events in society. Great-grandfather somehow got to know a powerful person. The powerful person said that great-grandfather was very lucky and would protect his descendants. Moreover, the Song family's descendants would have a top-grade birth chart, but they needed to be protected. It was said that great-grandfather made a deal with the powerful person, but no one knew what the deal was. The powerful person helped great-grandfather build up the Song family's foundation and chose the Song family's mansion as the best feng shui location. From then on, the Song family's path was smooth sailing and they became prosperous today. It happened 30 years ago. At that time, Song Yanqing hadn't even been born yet. Problems had already begun in Song Yin's generation. Regardless of whether it was the brothers or the collateral relatives, as long as it was their generation, it would be a girl who would descend. There was no exception. Song Shirin's father, the old man of the Song family, felt that something was wrong, so he found a feng shui master out of nowhere to re-examine the feng shui of the Song family's ancestral home. The feng shui master only said that there was a problem with the Song family's mansion and that the feng shui had been rectified. At that time, I had just come into contact with all of this, and I had indeed witnessed the amazing methods of that master. Thinking back to that scene, Song Shiyin felt emotional. Only then did she realize that there were some people in this world who could not be judged by common sense. After that, he said that I would definitely have a son in 5 years. 5 years later, Guan Qing was indeed born. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion. At this point, Song Shiyin slowly exhaled and sighed. Song Yanqing's eyes flickered slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. Qiao Jin revealed a playful smile. He was right. You also had a son. I also thought that he was doing it for our own good. But on the day Guan Qing was born, he did something to him. He said that Guan Qing's fate was unparalleled in the world, but the Song family wasn't enough to suppress his fate and needed to be protected. At the time, I felt that it was inappropriate, but my father agreed. In addition, the feng shui master had also said that he had a son because of the master's help, so they believed him. Chapter 80. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid Yanqing's fate was switched from then on. When Song Yanqing was born, he began to have a high fever not long after that night and had all kinds of problems. When they contacted him after that, the feng shui master only said that health problems couldn't be forced. Moreover, although Song Yanqing grew up with a weak body, he was indeed as smart and perfect as imagined, except for his weak body. Thus, the Song family suppressed this question. If Qiao Jin hadn't suddenly appeared, Song Maiyin wouldn't have connected this problem to the fortune teller. After all, she had never heard of a fate switch before. Qiao Jin smiled even more happily. When it comes to feng shui, it's best to be careful. Then let me tell you, what he did to your house wasn't to change your feng shui at all, but to set up a fate sealing array in your house. This is the basis for a fate switch. The other party is an array master. An array master? Song Maiyin was a little shocked, obviously not understanding what it was. Song Yanqing was also a little confused. Miss Qiao, can you explain it to us? Qiao Jin nodded. It's okay to tell you. I can put it this way. In this world, there are humans and spiritualists. Qiao Jin directly explained the differences between spiritualists. Song Yanqing was a little surprised, but not too shocked. Song Maiyin's face froze. She looked at Qiao Jin and suddenly asked, "Where did Miss Qiao learn these things?" Qiao Jin waved her hand. "Don't ask." Song Maiyin saw that she didn't answer and didn't force her. Instead, she had a strange expression. After a long time, she said, "I know about the existence of spiritualists, but this is the first time I've heard of such a distinction." Song Yanqing looked at Song Maiyin and frowned slightly. "Father, you know about spiritualists?" Song Yin nodded, looking a little tired. "That's an existence that neither you nor I can stop. I didn't tell you for your own good. Psychics are very different from us ordinary people. The country has a special organization to deal with them. The Song family was a prestigious family. Since their ancestors had come into contact with the relevant Almighty, it was not strange that they knew about spiritual readers. But he didn't expect that they didn't have the concept of array masters and spiritual speakers. Perhaps the concept of a psychic in their minds was only that of a sorcerer. Qiao Jin tapped his chin with his finger and thought for a moment. Then he asked, "Does Mr. Song know where the fortune teller is now?" Song Shirin's expression didn't look too good. "It's precisely because I know that this matter is difficult to handle. That person is currently overseas, and I don't know his whereabouts. And we haven't contacted each other for almost 20 years. No one knew whether he was still alive or not." "Still alive," Qiao Jin suddenly said with certainty. "Changing his life providence will backfire on him. He's most likely a monster that's neither human nor ghost. He won't appear in front of others casually. It's best to find out who he changed Song Yanqing's life providence with." Song Shiyin suddenly looked at her expectantly. "Miss Qiao, do you have a way?" Qiao Jin shook her head. "I can investigate, but I can't help you. Changing life providence will backfire on you. It's the same if I help you. Karma is about equality. If I investigate this matter for you, you won't be able to afford the price I want. You'll suffer an even more serious backlash." Song Shiyin was a little surprised. "Doesn't Miss Qiao need money?" For these prestigious aristocratic families, they only needed to pay for the masters they hired. Qiao Jin sighed. If it could be solved with money, I wouldn't say so much. Chapter 81. However, she didn't say anything. If you can find out who the other party is, or, she smiled. Or if the other party takes the initiative to attack me, I can take the opportunity to deal with them. The main reason was that she still had to guard against the backlash. If she got involved with Song Yanqing's life providence, it would be even more troublesome. When she collected enough demonized spiritual thoughts and death aura, she could use them to offset it. Unfortunately, she didn't even have enough for herself. How could she waste it? Song Yanqing instantly understood something. He looked at Qiao Jin. Is Miss Qiao in trouble? Qiao Jin shook her head. It's not trouble. I just need your death aura. Song Jin knew that capable people like her should have some taboos. Otherwise, with people like Qiao Jin, the world wouldn't be dominated by ordinary people. In that case, she didn't force her. She said to Qiao Jin, no matter what, thank you for today's matter, Miss Qiao. If there's any news, I'll let you know. Qiao Jin nodded. Song Jin said a few more words to Song Yanqing and then left for the airport. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing were left in the room. Song Yanqing said calmly, Miss Qiao, should I get the driver to send you back? Qiao Jin shook her head. No need. I still have to deal with someone. I can go back by myself. When Song Yanqing heard this, he seemed to have heard something interesting. He was a little amused and let out a low laugh. Oh, who is Miss Qiao going to deal with? Qiao Jin walked out the door. Someone who needs to be taught a lesson. She walked to the door outside and waved at Song Yanqing. Mr. Song, if there's anything, I'll see you again. Song Yanqing watched her leave and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. When Qiao Jin's figure left the main entrance, the smile on his lips gradually faded. He took out his phone and called Song Shiyin, who had just left. Father. Song Qinin's voice came through the phone. She sounded a little cold. Yanqing, we can't trust her completely, but I'll do as she says and find that person. You're my only son. I can't afford to gamble with you. Song Yanqing knew what Song Shiyin meant. Qiao Jin had suddenly appeared, and she was the daughter of the Mu family. However, they had investigated Qiao Jin's information. Her previous performance did not match her current performance. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes and looked at the ground. His tone was somewhat cheerful. I believe her. Didn't she save my life? It's up to you, Song Shiyin said. You have your own analysis. I'll look into it. With that, he hung up the phone. Song Yanqing looked out the door and suddenly saw his bodyguard looking at the door. He asked softly, what's wrong? One of the bodyguards came over and said hurriedly, Miss Qiao seemed to have a conflict with someone. Brother Adidas went to help her. Hearing that, Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows and walked toward the door. Qiao Jin knew that Liu Wenmeng was brainless, but she did not expect him to be so brainless. Qiao Jin had just come out of the house and had not even gone far. Liu Wenmeng drove the car and followed her for a while. Then, she realized that Qiao Jin was walking alone. Coupled with the fact that it was in a remote area, she became bolder. She stopped the car and said to Qiao Jin with some reluctance, let's talk, shall we? He was driving someone else's car today, a luxury car. Qiao Jin glanced at it. He thought that Qiao Jin had an idea after seeing the car. He suddenly thought, isn't she just a woman who likes money? Chapter 82. Qiao Jin wanted to know what Liu Wenmeng's IQ was thinking. She was chauffeured home every day. Didn't he know that? Oh, maybe he thought that those were Qiao Jin's friends from the bar who came to pick her up. After all, there were rumors about her in school. Qiao Jin smiled. What do we have to talk about? Do we know each other? Liu Wenmeng's expression turned ugly. You don't have to say that. Qiao Jin, it's useless to hook up with Musichu. How embarrassing would it be if people knew what kind of person you are? Qiao Jin said, then tell me what kind of person I am. Liu Wenmeng curled his lips and said disdainfully, do you think no one knows? One of my buddies said that you were drinking with a few rich men in the bar. If this news gets out, It won't be good for your reputation. He was probably talking about the incident where Xiao Jin was harmed by Tan Shuejia in the bar. There were many people at that time. It wouldn't be strange if the news got out. However, who would know the truth? Xiao Jin was still smiling. So what does this have to do with you? Liu Wenmeng said, don't you just want money? Xiao Jin said, money? She lowered her head and smiled. Her smile was exquisite and charming. She looked at Liu Wenmeng and said, I only hate one kind of person in my life. People who don't have any self-awareness and are shameless. If you woke up this morning and took a look at yourself in the mirror, you should know what kind of person you are. Liu Wenmeng was angered by Xiao Jin's words. He felt that he had lost face. A trace of anger flashed in his eyes. He got out of the car and wanted to grab Xiao Jin. Why are you pretending to be noble? Just as he finished speaking and was about to touch Xiao Jin, she reached out at lightning speed and grabbed Liu Wenmeng's arm. With a flip of her hand, she threw him toward the car. His arm was clamped down and he was sprawled on the front of the car. Xiao Jin was no longer merciful. With a karate chop, she chopped down on the arm that she was holding. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream echoed throughout the entire street. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The bodyguards outside the house saw that something was wrong, and Arbai immediately rushed over. Miss Chow, are you all right? Ever since the incident with Song Yanqing, Dan had great respect for Xiao Jin. He hoped that she would forget what he had said about jumping off the balcony. Liu Wenmeng felt as if her arm had been broken at that moment. She was in so much pain that she was convulsing. Cold sweat broke out all over her body. Her entire body was in so much pain that she felt cold all over. When she heard Yi's words, she almost cursed out loud. Who the fuck is the problem? However, he was already in a daze from the pain. He didn't expect Xiao Jin to be so ruthless. Xiao Jin shook him off and retracted his hand. He dusted his palms as if he was dusting off dust. Not bad. To deal with shameless people, she had to kill them with one blow. She had to beat them until they would only tremble when they saw her in the future. Arbai had seen Xiao Jin hit Liu Wenmeng just now. That skillful posture of splitting people showed that he was a professional. He raised his eyebrows and a cold voice came from behind. What's wrong? They turned around and saw Song Yanqing walking over. Arbai hurried over. Young master, something happened to Miss Chow. At this moment, Liu Wenmeng was in so much pain that he was trembling. He covered his numb arm and shrank to the ground. Leaning against the front of the car, he looked at Xiao Jin in pain. Before he could scold him, he suddenly saw a noble man standing in front of him. With just one look, the other party's strong aura suppressed him until he forgot what he wanted to say. Chapter 83. Anyone who stood in front of a man like Song Yanqing would only feel the huge gap between them. He didn't need any actions or words. The aura around him was born, and others couldn't learn it even if they wanted to. It was a kind of elegance and nobility that came from being born superior. Just one look at him made Liu Wenmeng feel suffocated and embarrassed. As soon as he appeared, Liu Wenmeng was a little scared to even look at him directly. The other party didn't need to say anything, and it was clear that he was in a sorry state right now. What's wrong? Song Yanqing lowered his head slightly to look at Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin shook her head. Just a small matter. She looked at Liu Wenmeng and sneered. Whatever. If you come to harass me again, I'll beat you every time I see you. Let's see how much you can take. After saying this, Liu Wenmeng shuddered. He had never felt Xiao Jin's ruthlessness and straightforwardness before, even from a boy. Xiao Jin didn't say much. She just waved at Song Yanqing and said lazily, bye. See you later. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes and said softly when she was about to leave, my father left in a hurry and didn't thank you properly. Can you do me a favor and treat you to a meal? When he said that, even Je's eyes widened a little. Song Yanqing never took the initiative to invite others. Anyone who could be invited by him would feel lucky. Xiao Jin didn't feel too honored. She just tilted her head and thought. Okay. What do you want to eat? Anyway, it was the chef of the Mu family who cooked. Although he was a 5-star chef, she had only eaten it for a few days. She had to say that she was a little tired of it. She wasn't picky, but she occasionally wanted to change it. That was the main point. Song Yanqing's smile was so gentle that it could melt everything. Up to you. What do you like to eat? Qiao Jin was a casual person. Tell me. I'm not familiar with this place. Okay. Song Yanqing thought for a moment. I often go to a restaurant. The food there is quite good. A restaurant that could catch Song Yanqing's eye was definitely not an ordinary restaurant. Qiao Jin had no objections. Seeing that she agreed, Song Yanqing tilted his head and ordered, "Ah Tong, go get the car." Ah Zhong hurriedly said, "Okay." Ah Zong went to drive the car. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing walked away naturally. Throughout their conversation, neither of them looked at Liu Wenmeng, who was on the ground. Even if they were in the same space, it was like a different world. Liu Wenmeng looked at Song Yanqing's superior appearance and the noble demeanor of an aristocratic family. Her inferiority complex was like a rising tide, suffocating her. This was a person living in another world. Except that they were all men, they had nothing in common. At this time, his arm hurt and he couldn't raise his head. When Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin walked forward, a bodyguard came up and looked at him with a fake smile. "Sir, you should leave here." Although it was a polite tone, it was full of indifference. Liu Wenmeng's head was hot, and he didn't dare to say anything at this time. His arm was hurt by Qiao Jin. At this time, he didn't even dare to ask Qiao Jin for compensation. Trembling, he got into the car and drove away with one hand. He felt that the consequences might be more serious if he stayed here. When he followed them, he was aggressive. Now when he left, he was like a rat crossing the street. He was dejected and couldn't be seen. Liu Wenmeng could feel her cheeks burning just by thinking about the difference in their levels. It was an extremely embarrassing and despairing line. Chapter 84. Ardan drove a Bentley with a low-key and elegant appearance. Just like its owner. Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing sat in the back seat with enough distance between them. It was reasonable to say that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, especially to be alone with Song Yanqing. Ardan saw from the rearview mirror that Qiao Jin was playing with her mobile phone. Obviously, she was not in the mood to talk to Song Yanqing. Ardan was shocked. This woman was too scary. In the face of the young master's stunning beauty, she was not moved at all and could still play with her mobile phone. Not only was she scary, but she was also quite beast. She could still play with her mobile phone in front of the young master. What was she if not a beast? Of course, Song Yanqing was not looking for a reason to ask Qiao Jin out. Since he asked Qiao Jin to have a meal, he must have a lot of things to ask Qiao Jin. He had a lot of questions about the psychic. He had no intention of telling anyone, not even his father, about the fact that he could see another strange world. He felt that he might get the answer from Qiao Jin, but he was hesitating whether it was appropriate to tell Qiao Jin now. Seeing Qiao Jin take out her mobile phone and start playing games openly, Song Yanqing felt a little funny. Was it so boring to sit with him? He would not just watch Qiao Jin play by herself, so he took the initiative to say, "Miss Qiao." Qiao Jin suddenly raised her head. Her eyes were very bright, as if they had always been full of stars. Now, she glanced at Song Yanqing and said, "You can call me Qiao Jin." Song Yanqing changed his words. "Okay, Qiao Jin." Ardan felt that the young master's change of words was too natural. He should not be such a person. Qiao Jin thought for a moment, then suddenly asked Song Yanqing a strange question. "Your grades in college were pretty good, right?" Song Yanqing did not expect someone to ask him such a question. He was stunned for a moment. Arpei almost laughed out loud. "Miss Qiao, I'm afraid you don't know. Young master's previous results, no matter where he went, no matter what he studied or what he studied, he never got anything other than first place." There was pride in his tone. This was also the pride of the Song family. There were many outstanding people, but it was rare to see someone as outstanding as Song Yanqing. No matter what he did, other than what his body didn't allow, he was absolutely strong in all other aspects. Song Yanqing didn't think it was worth showing off. It was just a normal thing for him. He was just a little puzzled as to why Qiao Jin would ask such a question. "Do you have a question?" Qiao Jin's eyes lit up when he heard that his grades were excellent. Do you have any secrets in your studies? For example, in mathematics. I studied linguistics, but it's still a bit of a headache to learn the basic courses. In other words, she was an antique from 1,000 years ago. If she didn't have the memories of the past, it would be very difficult for her to learn modern knowledge. It was already good enough that she could learn to walk. After all, she was only interested in studying all kinds of arrays since ancient times. Song Yanqing, our Pei, was also dumbfounded. Didn't Miss Qiao look very awesome? Why did she need to ask others for help in her studies? The key was asking his young master for help in his college courses. There was no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Song Yanqing thought for a moment and didn't refuse. I don't know the progress of your studies now. You can show me the textbooks. If it's difficult to understand the content, I can help you make a simple plan to make it easier for you to learn. Qiao Jin immediately nodded. Okay. Since ancient times, how many geniuses had been forced to go bald by mathematics and physics? Even someone like her couldn't escape. Chapter 85. At first, he thought that Qiao Jin was not easy to get along with. Now that he saw that the other party was also worried about his university courses, Song Yanqing felt that it was a little funny. The knowledge from childhood to university had never been a problem for him. Even if it had been a long time, he still remembered those contents in his heart. It was not difficult to help Qiao Jin with a small favor. Qiao Jin was not one to take advantage of others. After Song Yanqing agreed, she said, "If you have anything to ask, you can ask me directly." It was not that she could not tell that Song Yanqing had something to ask her. Song Yanqing nodded. "I'll tell you when we eat." The location that Song Yanqing introduced was a high-end restaurant. It did not look like a restaurant from the outside. After entering, it looked more like a clubhouse. It was very big inside, and almost all of them were small private rooms. The decoration style was a combination of Eastern and Western. Hidden in the downtown area, it looked unique and elegant. Song Yanqing introduced it to Qiao Jin. The chef here is the heir of a famous domestic chef. He has studied abroad for more than 10 years. His cooking skills are very good. You need to make an appointment to eat here. I'll let them record your information. When you want to come over for dinner, just say it in advance. Qiao Jin shook her head. There's no need to go through so much trouble. The waiter inside led them to a special private room and greeted with a smile. "Mr. Song, the same old rules?" Song Yanqing nodded and asked Qiao Jin, "What do you like?" Qiao Jin said, "Anything. I'm not picky." Song Yanqing nodded and said to the waiter, "Same as me." The waiter nodded with a smile and left. The table was a specially made rectangular carved wooden table. The two of them sat opposite each other. Qiao Jin sat down and simply looked around. Other than the unique decoration of the room, there was nothing to look at. No matter how elegant it was, it could not compare to the man sitting opposite her. As long as he was here, the surrounding scenery seemed to be a foil to him. The tip of her eyebrows and the corners of her eyes had a charm that made people unable to take their eyes off her. His bones were filled with the coldness of the pine trees in winter, but he maintained his elegant demeanor on the surface. It was precisely because he was too good-looking that people's gazes unconsciously returned to him. Seeing Qiao Jin's gaze wander around before returning to him, Song Yanqing smiled and said in a low voice, "Perhaps this is a little abrupt, but I have to admit that I've asked your two brothers about you before. Did you live alone with Madame Mu in Insignia City?" Qiao Jin shrugged and said indifferently, "Yeah." These were all things that could be found out. There was nothing to deny. Song Yanqing nodded slightly and didn't continue asking. He just looked at Qiao Jin. "Qiao Jin, if you don't mind, can you explain to me about spiritual readers? My father left in a hurry just now, so I have many questions." "Sure." Qiao Jin thought for a moment and said, "Actually, there's not much to say. To put it bluntly, a spiritual reader is a person with spiritual senses. This thing is like winning the lottery. Very few people can obtain it, but those who obtain it may not necessarily have the wisdom to control spiritual senses. Many people will be demonized and become demonized spiritual readers. This kind of person usually has the instinct to destroy and erode, and is a disaster. Song Yanqing's ability to understand was very strong. The spiritual reader organization that my father mentioned, does it exist to deal with these demonized spiritual readers? Qiao Jin nodded. Yes. His eyes were like a bottomless abyss, surging with countless emotions. Now, there was only a faint trace of curiosity. What about you? Chapter 86. His voice was cold and pure, like the most mountain stream. Every vibration of his tone was like a beautiful performance. What do you belong to? Qiao Jin was not a member of the spirit group. Song Yanqing had never come into contact with such a world, but he understood that such an organization would probably not allow its members to leak such a secret. Me. Qiao Jin's lips curled into a mysterious smile. I'm an existence that you can't imagine. Song Yanqing could see it. She looked amiable and approachable, but inadvertently, she gave off an obvious feeling of disparity. It was as if she was standing on a higher flight of stairs, looking down at the world. He continued to ask, "Why did you save me?" Qiao Jin put his hands on the table and looked at him without blinking. I'll tell you this. In this world, everything is equal. Everything has a cause and effect. I have to pay a price for my current existence, and this price can be achieved by the death aura on your body. Therefore, I saved you for my own sake. Death aura. He savored these two words carefully and revealed a bewitching smile. It doesn't sound like a good word. Is it something that appeared when my life providence was swapped? Qiao Jin nodded. People will only have death aura when they die, but people who die of old age won't. Just like you, I saved you, but the death aura on your body hasn't dissipated. I can collect this death aura, but I can't make it disappear. As long as you're in danger, the death aura will exist. She paused for a moment and continued, you couldn't even live past 25 years old. It was the Song family's powerful luck that protected you. The person who swapped your life providence did everything he could to take your life. As long as you die, your life providence will fall on another person's head. Now, you're not dead, so he won't let it go. The only good thing is that once you're 25 years old, even if you're in danger, you won't necessarily fall into a death aura again. As long as you find that person as soon as possible, you can restore your original life providence. After saying this, she suddenly stopped talking. The waiter pushed the door open and entered. They were pushing a small cart with exquisite bowls and plates on it. It didn't seem like much, but there were a lot of them. Song Yanqing's eyes were warm. Let's eat first. The aroma of the food was indeed alluring. The restaurant that Song Yanqing had introduced was indeed extraordinary. Just a whiff of the aroma was enough to make one unable to stop. His culinary skills were indeed better than the chefs of the Mu family. Qiao Jin enjoyed the meal to his heart's content and helped Song Yanqing answer a lot of questions. He was a very smart person, and Qiao Jin only needed to give him a general idea for him to quickly understand, even if it was a field he had never been involved in. If this person was also a spiritual reader, he would definitely be a very troublesome existence. He was indeed a rare person with a peerless destiny. While they were eating, the situation in the other private rooms in the same restaurant was also different. He's here for dinner. In a modernized private room upstairs, a gloomy man was sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed. His limbs were slender, and he was wearing a slim-fit shirt and suit pants. It was obvious that he also came from a rich family. It was just that his eyebrows were too sharp, and the corners of his lips were thin and cold, revealing a bit of harsh coldness. There were two people standing next to him. One of them was slightly shorter, less than 1.6 meters. He was wearing a medical mask, which looked a bit strange. The other person looked like an ordinary bodyguard. He bowed and replied respectfully, yes. Chapter 87. The gloomy man opened his eyes and looked at the short man. Didn't you say that he almost died 2 days ago? Most of the short man's face was covered by a mask. The only thing that could be seen was his eyes, which had strange pupils. They were not completely round, but oval. There was news that he was dead. A rough and hoarse voice came from under the mask. He's alive again. He's alive again. The gloomy man smiled. This smile was a bit spicy and cold. It's really strange. The short man was silent for a moment and said, "It seems to be related to a girl." A girl? The man sat up from the sofa and showed a hint of playfulness. What kind of girl? I don't know. While they were talking, a trace of discussion came from downstairs. They were upstairs, and the window was open. The gloomy man's ears twitched, and he came to the window with the short man. They just saw the handsome Song Yanqing coming out with a girl. Song Yanqing didn't need to be mentioned. The girl looked delicate and showed a bit of a bright and beautiful aura, but she looked unfamiliar. The two of them only stood by the window, but the window door was half closed. It should be impossible to see their faces clearly. The girl downstairs quickly turned her gaze up. "What's wrong?" Song Yanqing asked, and the corner of his eyes followed. There seemed to be someone in the window. Those who came here were either rich or noble. The other party deliberately stepped back 2 steps behind the window, not letting Song Yanqing see clearly. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes turned back. Qiao Jin snorted. Nothing. It was just another spiritual reader. Her answer clearly indicated that there was something wrong. Song Yanqing just smiled and didn't continue to ask. The two of them walked out together. After they left, the gloomy man slowly said playfully, "Could it be this girl?" "It should be." The short man's voice was still rough. "Has there been another woman around Song Yanqing?" "Obviously it's her." The gloomy man nodded. "Go and check her background." The bodyguard behind responded. "Yes." After having dinner with Song Yanqing, Qiao Jin sent his teaching materials to Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing was really a genius. In less than half an hour, he sent Qiao Jin a note. They were all simplified formulas, and she had to remember which were the key points. There were also some formula questions that were not in the textbooks, but they looked more approachable and easier to understand than in the textbooks. At the very least, Qiao Jin wouldn't have to worry so much when he read the teaching materials again. Qiao Jin, the array master from 10,000 years ago, could not imagine that someone could invent such a strange and complicated subject. The wisdom of humans was truly boundless. She couldn't help but sigh. After studying for 2 days, he calculated that there should be some movement in his blog shop. She wondered which unlucky person, the wrong lucky star, was lucky enough to receive her guidance. Lin Sai was a high school girl. Now, when she should be worrying about the college entrance examination, she fell into love blindly. She had a crush on someone. The crush of a pure little girl was always so beautiful. The other party was also much more mature than her. She wasn't sure if her confession would bear fruit. At this time, girls were always a little chunibya. She thought of the tarot card divination on the internet or the prediction of marriage. The shop, "You also come to fortune-telling today," suddenly came into her sight. She looked at the price and shuddered in shock. Chapter 88. The current price of 99 yuan for fortune-telling was still acceptable, but the other packages almost made her eyes pop out of their sockets. What was even more amazing was that this shop didn't even have a single customer. It was obvious that this shop was a scam. She just wanted to take a look, but she accidentally clicked on the other party's contact page on her phone. The shop replied immediately. "Customer service today at your service." "Today, dear, how are you? Are you a fortune teller?" "Today, oh, are you a marriage?" "Marriage is only 99 yuan now. Don't miss this opportunity." Lin Sai was shocked. The first sentence was okay, but how did the shop owner know that she wanted to calculate her marriage? It was probably a blind guess. After all, only marriage and luck were 99 yuan per session. Lin Sai had nothing to do, so she quickly replied. "Anonymous buyer XXX, how did you know that I wanted to calculate my marriage? Today, I run a fortune-telling shop. How can I open a shop if I don't know this?" Lin Sai, his tone was quite arrogant. "Anonymous buyer XXX, smile, aren't all fortune-telling shops pretending to be mysterious? Your shop only has marriage and luck for 99 yuan. You can pick anyone and it will be correct. It's impossible for someone to pick the expensive packages at the back. Today, order first." I'll calculate it for you after you place the order. Anonymous buyer XXX. You want me to place an order without saying anything? You're forcing me to buy and sell. Today, what's the point of not placing an order? I don't have any objections, but young lady, your luck can't beat this kind of calculating first and paying later. Lynn thought for a moment and was shocked. Not because of the shop owner's words, but because of the word young lady. Marrowbow website protected the buyer's information. Before placing an order, one wouldn't know if the person was a man or a woman, and one couldn't open the buyer's history. The key was that the shop owner called her a young lady. How did the shop owner know? For a moment, Lynn Tsai felt that her information had been sold. But she had asked anonymously. It was too strange to know that she was a young lady, right? Oh, no, wasn't this a fortune-telling shop? Lynn Tsai felt that it was a little strange, but it was 99 yuan anyway. If the other party was pretending to be mysterious, she could apply for a refund and let Marrowbow's customer service intervene. 99 yuan was just a little of her pocket money. Thinking of this, Lynn Tsai felt more confident. She placed the order and chose a single marriage. The other party's reply was very fast. Today, dear, please give me your name and age. It would be best if you could give me a specific month of birth. Anonymous buyer XXX. Ah, mine? Today, you don't need it, it's the guys. Ever since Lynn Tsai came to her door and contacted her, Xiao Jin already knew about Lynn Tsai's general information. Anonymous buyer XXX, Hu Wei, born in August 24th. Is that all you need? Do you really not need my information? The customer service didn't reply for a few minutes. Just when Lynn Tsai suspected that he had met a scammer, the other party quickly replied. Today, Kiss, I think you're a little unlucky. Anonymous buyer XXX. What do you mean by that? A personal attack. Do you think I won't complain about you? She was supposed to be calculating the fate of a marriage. How did she end up being an unlucky person? Today, the first time I fell in love with someone, I fell in love with a murderer. Kiss me, tell me if you are a little unlucky. Anonymous buyer XXX. Lynn was lost in thought and shock. Murderer? How could the person she liked be a murderer? Lynn Tsai almost screamed on the other side of the phone. The customer service followed up with another attack. Today, Kiss, I suggest you choose another life calamity package. I can give you more details. Otherwise, you can choose to call the police. Chapter 89. Lynn Tsai couldn't see it either. If he could see it. If she could see it, she could see an expressionless girl who was working hard on her math course. From time to time, she would look ferocious for a moment. She could even type in a very cute tone to brush her off. If it wasn't for the tradition of this stupid website, there was no other way for business. Xiao Jin would definitely throw one out. Believe it or not, get lost. Xiao Jin wouldn't care even if he knew that the person Lynn Tsai met was dangerous. There were thousands of accidents in this world every day. It was good enough to meet her. Was she a living bodhisattva who saved the world and had to care about everything? It all depended on the person's fate. At that moment, Lynn Tsai was sure that Xiao Jin just wanted to cheat her of her money. But Xiao Jin only calculated the information she gave. He didn't even know her own information. Wasn't this nonsense? Who only needed to know one person's name and date of birth? It wasn't even the 8 characters. Anonymous buyer, how can you say such nonsense? Don't you feel guilty that you're slandering an outstanding young man as a murderer? I want to report you, the seller. You don't even know my information and you've already calculated it. Today, today, my dear, your surname is Lin. I'm too lazy to calculate your name. If you don't want to believe it, you can take a screenshot and report me. But you'll suffer a backlash. Lin Tsai's face instantly turned red. This shop was threatening her. She actually threatened her. Not only did she threaten her, she even used a cute tone to mock and brush her off. Was she human? Fortune-telling did pay attention to karma. Knowing too much might not be good for one, but that was for situations where it wasn't very accurate. It was Lin Tsai's first time doing this, and it was on the internet. She immediately thought that this shop was opened by a scammer. After taking a screenshot, she wanted to report it. But after thinking about it, she felt a little guilty. Usually, if an online shop was given a bad review, they would retaliate, let alone a fortune-telling shop. What if the shop wasn't good at fortune-telling but was good at revenge? Looking at the shop's speed, it had already been sent out. There was half a month's time between the order and the automatic confirmation and reneging. Lindsay could still choose to refund by then. She thought angrily that not only did she fail to calculate her marriage, but her sweetheart was slandered for no reason. She would just treat it as a temporary loss of 100 yuan. She obviously wouldn't take the customer service's words to heart. If she could find out that someone was a murderer with just a simple calculation, why didn't she just contribute to the country? There wouldn't be such a ridiculous thing in this world. She closed the chat interface and rolled her eyes. Hu Wei was an older brother whom she met at a milk tea shop outside of school. He was handsome and was the treasure of the milk tea shop. There were many girls who were infatuated with him. However, Lin Sai Liao always felt that she was special because every time she went, she was the only one who could enjoy the benefit of having a larger cup if she ordered a small cup. Hu Wei said that it was a special concern for his younger sister. Young girls were always so obsessed with small benefits that they thought were romantic fantasies, so it was normal for Lin Sai to be moved by him. Her grades weren't too good, and she was too lazy to study, so she was obsessed with fantasies. It made Lin Sai Liao feel a little guilty for doing this for nothing. How about this, after school tomorrow, she would go to the milk tea shop to see brother Hu Wei to purify her mood. Chapter 90. It was none of Qiao Jin's business whether Lin Sai believed him or not. It wasn't easy to earn 100 yuan. Qiao Jin couldn't help but click his tongue. Everything was difficult at the beginning, and then it would be even more difficult. Lin Sai had suddenly come to his door. It would be even more difficult to wait for a business deal. However, Qiao Jin wasn't in a hurry. He knew that he would become famous sooner or later. He continued to keep a low profile in class for 2 days. A lot of strange things had happened in the school recently. For example, a large number of mobile phones had been lost and accidents had happened to students. It wasn't a big deal, but it made the principal want to find a master to check if the school had offended someone. Although people in the 21st century believed in scientism, people in higher positions knew that some things must have their uses since they were passed down. However, it was just a thought. There were so many students in the school, and it was a prestigious school. It couldn't be done in a big way. Feng Fei he wasn't in a good mood recently, especially when she bumped into Qiao Jin after school. The two of them brushed past each other. His eyes lingered on her face for a moment, just a moment. Then, a strange smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Feng Fei he couldn't describe it. She was a little cold and a little angry. She didn't like Qiao Jin. She didn't like him at first sight. Now, she didn't like him even more. His eyes just now gave her the illusion that he was looking down at her from the top of the clouds. That was impossible. After all, with her status, she was much nobler than Qiao Jin, this wild child who had popped out of nowhere. He was just related to the Mu family. What right did he have to be arrogant? Especially when he asked Muzichu not to talk to her. Thinking of this, a trace of hatred flashed in her eyes. She held her small bag and walked to the driver's door. The phone rang. When she saw the caller ID, impatience flashed in her eyes. She stepped into the car and picked up the phone. "What do you want?" Her tone was full of impatience. The other party's tone was frightened. I'm really scared. Xuejia is dead. Jiazhen is dead. What if something happens to me? What should I do? Feng Fei he was furious when she heard the other party's fearful tone. What are you afraid of? Their deaths were just an accident. Do you still think it has anything to do with what I told you? But you were the one who told us to look for that Qiao guy. The other party was terrified to the extreme. He sounded like he was about to cry as he said, "She has returned to the Mu family now. Who knows if the Mu family hired someone to do this?" The Phoenix consort interrupted him with a sinister tone. "I'm telling you, I don't know what you're talking about. This matter has nothing to do with me. Besides, if Tan Xuejia and Ji Jiazhen are dead, then they're dead. Who knows if they've provoked someone outside? As a member of the Feng family, she was certain that she would not suffer any harm. Judging from the Mu family's attitude, it didn't seem like they had found out about this matter. Tan Xuejia and Ji Jiazhen's deaths were obviously revenge killings. The Mu family wouldn't do such a thing. A mentally ill victim wouldn't have the ability to do so. As soon as she finished speaking, there was suddenly a harsh braking sound in front of her. The driver turned the steering wheel unprepared. A large truck that had been driving in front suddenly lost control. Half of it fell down, crushing Feng Fei his car instantly. Feng Fei he was sitting on the edge of the right-hand side. The moment she saw the car fall down, she only had time to scream. Chapter 91. When Xiao Jin returned home, he bumped into Muzichu, who was about to go out. Muzichu didn't have any classes today, so he came home early. When he saw Xiao Jin, he nodded and was about to leave. During this period of time, they didn't interact much. Xiao Jin didn't like to talk to them, let alone ask about their affairs. When he was about to leave, he suddenly heard Xiao Jin ask, "Xiao Jin, what happened?" Muzichu paused and stopped. He looked back at Xiao Jin and said, "Something happened to Feng Fei he. It's the daughter of my father's business partner. I need to go and take a look." His relationship with Feng Fei he could only be described as ordinary. He didn't like Feng Fei he. But now that something happened and Mu Junming wasn't around, it was reasonable for him to go and take a look. So his voice was cold and he didn't seem to be in a hurry. Xiao Jin seemed a little surprised. "Did something happen?" Muzichu nodded. "It was a car accident. A truck fell and crushed her car. The driver died on the spot. Fortunately, she was only injured and is still alive." Xiao Jin looked very surprised. He covered his mouth with his fingers. "God, how did this happen?" Then he turned and walked back to his room. Muzichu, Xiao Jin's appearance just now was very pretentious. Sometimes he didn't understand Xiao Jin's thoughts, but he was too lazy to think about it now. He ordered the driver to take him to the hospital to visit Feng Fei he. Xiao Jin and Feng Fei he didn't know each other, so there was no need to call him over. When she saw Feng Fei he today, she knew something was going to happen to her. But what she saw at that time was the aura of death. It was really surprising that Feng Fei he didn't die. Obviously, the driver was the scapegoat. She drew a formation and did a simple check. When she saw the results, her lips curved into a smile. No wonder she didn't die. Feng Fei he had a sudden accident. After emergency treatment, her life was finally saved. However, several of the bones in her upper body were broken, and she was covered in blood. When she was pulled out of the car, the doctor thought that she would not survive. However, he miraculously survived. However, she would have to recuperate for a few years. Lying on the bed, she couldn't even speak. When she saw her parents rushing over after receiving the news, her tears kept falling. It was heartbreaking. Her father was Feng Yongshe, ranked 5th in the Feng family. He wasn't very outstanding, but he wasn't someone others could compare to. Her mother was the daughter of the CEO of a well-known department store, Xie. When the couple saw Feng Fei his current state, their hearts were about to break. How did it become like this? Upon seeing the rescued Feng Fei he, Xie almost fainted from crying. She could no longer maintain her ladylike demeanor, and even her voice was a little hoarse. From this, it could be seen how much she loved her daughter. Feng Yongshe was wearing a suit. He was still energetic in his middle age, and his figure was decent. If his expression wasn't so gloomy, he would be a graceful middle-aged man. Feng Fei he was very beautiful, and the couple's genes were naturally not bad. Feng Fei he also had surgery on her throat, so she couldn't speak at the moment. The doctor stated the situation of Feng Fei he next to them and told them that she would have to rest for at least a few years before she could recover properly. Feng Yongshe opened his mouth, and his voice was fierce. "Nothing should have happened. Nothing should have happened to my daughter." The doctor could only persuade him, "Mr. Feng, sometimes accidents happen, and there is no other way." Feng Yongshe suddenly raised his head, and his eyes were frighteningly fierce. How could something happen to my Feng family? Chapter 92. His appearance gave the doctor quite a fright. Feng Yongshe had always been rumored to have a good character and a good reputation. At this moment, although it was hard to accept that Feng Fei he had an accident, his appearance was obviously a bit extreme. Xie Zhihua, who was crying, suddenly reacted and pinched Feng Yongshe. Their family situation was not right, but ordinary people couldn't see it. Feng Yongshe immediately came back to his senses, restrained his anger, and waved his hand with a tired look. "Doctor, I'm a little too excited. You can go out, let me and my wife talk to my daughter." The doctor also understood their emotions, and only said one sentence: "The patient needs to rest well." Then he left. Xie Zhihua immediately cried even more. She looked at Feng Yongshe, and her voice was sharper than Feng Yongshe's just now. "How could Feihe have an accident? Is there a problem with your Feng Shui? How could she have an accident?" If others heard what she said, it was obviously difficult to understand. Everyone had accidents. How could it be a problem with Feng Shui? Feng Yongshe gritted his teeth. This is not right. Feng Fei he couldn't speak. She could only look at her parents with tears streaming down her face. She couldn't move her fingers. She pursed her lips and looked at her parents pleadingly. Xie Zhihua leaned over and stroked her daughter's face with an oxygen mask. Her heart was broken. "Feihe, what do you want to say? Mom knows how much pain you are in. Just bear with it, there will be a way to save you. There will definitely be a way to make you recover." She turned her head to look at Feng Yongshe and scolded in a sharp voice. Now that such a big thing has happened to Feihe, she is at least a member of the Feng family. "Let me ask you, will those two old farts care?" Feng Yongshe suddenly covered her mouth and scolded. "Are you fucking crazy?" Xie Zhihua struggled, and Feng Yongshe said with hatred, "I am even more sad that Feihe has an accident, but now that she suddenly has an accident, it means that there is something wrong with the Feng family. This is the most important thing. I want to find Arju to come and take a look." "Don't talk nonsense." Xie Zhihua understood and nodded vigorously. Only then did Feng Yong let go of her. Xie Zhihua stopped and looked at Feng Fei he with tears in her eyes. Her expression was ruthless. "Who is so cruel that they dare to lay their hands on our Feng Fei he? There are clearly several others." Feng Yongshe hurriedly interrupted her. "I told you not to talk nonsense. I'll go out and call someone to inform Arju." Xie Zhihua glared at him but didn't say anything. From their tone, it seemed that they were certain that someone was trying to harm Feng Fei he. However, the driver had already been interrogated. It was completely an accident caused by the truck going out of control. The traffic police had also verified it. If it was done on purpose, then the timing was perfect. Who could be sure that it was Feng Fei his car during the traffic jam? Feng Yongshe knew that the car accident might have been an accident, but his daughter's accident wasn't an accident. This meant that even if it wasn't a car accident, something else would have happened. This was impossible to happen in the Feng family. Xie Zhihua touched Feng Fei his face. Her tone was sad, but she tried to be gentle. "Feihe, don't worry. When Arju comes, Mother will definitely let him cure you as soon as possible. You will be fine soon. It will definitely not wait for a few years. Don't worry." Feng Fei he used all her strength and nodded her head with difficulty. If she knew who harmed her, she would definitely kill their whole family. Chapter 93. Muzichu came to express his condolences to Feng Fei he. However, Feng Fei he couldn't speak. Although she saw Muzichu coming, she could only look at him with a pitiful look. Muzichu was such a cold boy, and there was no fluctuation in his eyes at all. When Xie Zhihua was accompanying Feng Fei he in the ward, Muzichu just said in a cold tone, "Auntie, don't be sad. You will get better soon." His tone was so flat that it sounded like he was completing a task. Xie Zhihua was already angry now. When she heard this, she immediately replied sharply, "People who don't know will think that you are forced to come to see our concubine. You have been wronged, Master Mu." Although she knew that he usually spoke in such a tone, Xie Zhihua still felt wronged for her daughter. Because she knew that her daughter had a good impression of Muzichu, and Feng Yongshe also wanted to match them. Among the 3 sons of the Mu family, it didn't matter who came to marry the Feng family. But now Feng Fei he was lying in the hospital bed like this, and he still spoke in such a tone, which made Xie Zhihua angry. Unexpectedly, Mu Zichu was not a silent person. He was the young master of the Mu family, and he had always been spoiled. How could he bear Xie Zhihua's criticism? He put down the things he brought to express his condolences to Feng Fei he, and his tone was even colder. "Auntie, I know that you are very sad about Feng Fei his accident, but you have to know that her accident has nothing to do with me." After saying this, he turned around and left. Feng Fei he was a little excited. She wanted Mu Zichu to stay. Xie Zhihua's eyes widened. Seeing that Mu Zichu didn't look back and walked quickly, she was dumbfounded. Feng Fei his tears fell again. Xie Zhihua panicked. When she went out of the ward, Mu Zichu was tall and walked quickly, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. She couldn't put down her face to chase him, so she turned back with an ugly face. "Don't cry. The people from the Mu family are all heartless. Why do you have to like him? If you really like him, I'll ask your father to think of a way. He has no choice but to marry you." Feng Fei he was still sobbing. She was so injured that she couldn't move or speak. Her mind was so weak that anything could trigger her. She couldn't even get angry. What else could she do other than cry? Xie Zhihua couldn't bear to blame her. She could only cry along with her. "You are my Feng family's daughter. You don't like anyone. It's that bastard who doesn't know what's good for him." When Feng Yongshe came back, he saw the 2 people crying in the ward. He couldn't bear it and said, "Zhihua, Azu is here." Xie Zhihua turned around and quickly got up. An old man with a walking stick came in from Feng Yongshe's side. His body seemed a little stooped, but in fact, he was full of energy. He had white hair and a youthful face. He was wearing a noble tang suit. When he walked in, it was as if he was carrying the wind. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and he looked like an old man who was not to be trifled with. Feng Yongshe's attitude towards him was cautious, but he didn't dare to take the initiative to help him. When he entered the room, Xie Zhihua lowered her head and called carefully, "Azu." There were a few bodyguards guarding outside the door. They all came with the old man. At this moment, they were standing outside, but they were staring at Xie Zhihua and Feng Yongshe in the room, as if they would shoot them if they made any strange movements. In such an atmosphere, Xie Zhihua would unconsciously be nervous. The ancestor was a key figure in the Feng family. Even the second brother who was in power had to be careful to protect him, let alone these small characters. Chapter 94. Azu's face was cold, and he didn't say a word. When he came to Feng Fei he only took a glance at her, then he narrowed his eyes slightly. Feng Fei his body was injured, and now he was looking at her with goosebumps. Under the old man's gaze, she seemed to have a creepy feeling of being seen through. Her scalp tightened in an instant, and goosebumps appeared. Her body began to tremble unconsciously. Xie Zhihua felt a little distressed for her daughter's nervousness, but she didn't dare to speak. Feng Yongshe said, "Feihe, don't be nervous, Azu is just checking your luck." When Feng Fei he heard it, although she didn't quite understand, she gradually calmed down. Azu glanced at her and suddenly said, "She still has shit luck." This sentence was full of hostility, and his voice was hoarse. It was as blunt as sharpening a knife, which made people's scalp tightened. Feng Yongshe panicked at once. "Azu, what's going on?" Xie Zhihua trembled uncontrollably. "What do you mean?" Azu narrowed his eyes and said, "The Heavenly Palace's spirit is dead, and it's all dead aura. Even the Feng family's luck can't be blocked. Who did she offend? She actually has this ability." Feng Yongshe was shocked. Dead aura? He vaguely understood what the dead aura was, but Azu's words seemed too terrifying. Xie Zhihua's body was even limp. Even if she didn't quite understand, she could realize that this was a very serious matter. Azu looked directly at Feng Fei he. "What have you done recently? One by one, as long as it will affect you, say it all. The person who harmed you is not small. He can't even protect the Feng family's luck. He is not a simple person." Feng Yongshe said, "Azu, my daughter can't speak now. Zhu glanced at him and snorted coldly, "This matter can't be solved in a short time. When your daughter can speak, let her explain everything clearly. She offended someone, but since that person dares to not put the Feng family in his eyes, he must pay the price." Feng Yongsha nodded hurriedly, "Yes, we know. In front of Zhu, they really did not dare to refute a single word. Xie Zhihua stuttered, "Zhu, is there no way to treat Feihe's injuries? The doctor said that it would take at least a few years for her to recover naturally." For a few years, in the Feng family, a family that ate people without spitting out the bones, it was enough to make Feng Fei he not even have the power to fight. Zhu snorted coldly and looked at Feng Yongsha as if he was poisoned. "When I return, I will let Grand Ancestor treat her. You really can't do anything right." He flicked his sleeves and left. His words made everyone tremble. Feng Yongsha didn't dare to say a word. He just followed behind him and sent him off. When Xie Zhihua heard this affirmation, she immediately threw herself in front of her daughter's window. "It's okay, Feihe. You will get better. You will get better." Feng Feihe also heard the words that were said to treat her. At this moment, her eyes also shone with brilliance. She also knew what would happen if she couldn't recover for a few years. The Feng family was a cruel place. If you want to stand in the center of power, you have to fight for it yourself. And Zhu's mysterious ability also made her feel passionate. She also wanted to have it. It was a pity that if she couldn't stand out in the Feng family, she would not be qualified to get such a mysterious ability. Chapter 95. Qiao Jin carefully calculated Feng Fei his matter in the room. Only then did he discover that the Feng family was really a bit strange. The Feng family was a big family that prospered in the same era as the Song family. If the Song family relied on the accumulation of their predecessors to enjoy great wealth, then the Feng family prospered by borrowing the power of others. Now that it had reached the point where it was as famous as the Song family, the Feng family was naturally powerful. This family believed in the law of the jungle, and they still maintained the feudal system from 100 years ago. Compared with the Song family's openness, the Feng family didn't seem to take women seriously. The Feng family had many children, especially in Feng Fei his generation. There were dozens of children in the Feng family alone, not to mention those who were not allowed to enter the family. Every man in the Feng family, in addition to the official wife, had no less than 2 mistresses. These mistresses were not the same as ordinary lovers. If they could give birth to a son, and the son was outstanding, they would have the opportunity to enter the Feng family. Although it was not as good as the official wife of the Feng family, their life would be much better. It was not something that some rich and powerful women could compare with. Other families didn't think highly of the Feng family's practice, but because of the cooperative relationship, there were still many people who were willing to marry their spoiled daughters to the Feng family's men. Because the Feng family's assets, family business, and lifeline were not comparable to ordinary people. It had reached a point that ordinary people couldn't imagine. Feng Fei his father, Feng Yongsha, was the 5th in the Feng family's older generation, but he was not born of the Feng family's master's wife. However, his mother was still a concubine at that time, so she barely kept a little identity. He was not very outstanding in the Feng family. As his daughter, Feng Fei he was more outstanding than her father, and she was also very beautiful. However, in the Feng family, what they did not lack was such a beautiful daughter. The Song family and the Feng family also interacted. Song Yanqing had an aunt who was now the official wife of Feng Yongsha's 3rd brother. She gave birth to a pair of children who were now influential figures in the Feng family, and they had a good relationship with the Song family. In general, the relationship between these big families was very complicated. It wasn't that no one in the Feng family had their eyes on Song Yanqing. There were many girls who wanted to marry Song Yanqing and reach the sky in one step. However, Song Yanqing was the lifeblood of the Song Yanqing family. He was very protected. Even Song Yanqing's aunt herself did not allow the Feng family's daughter to come into contact with Song Yanqing. Not to mention the marriage alliance. There was something strange about the Feng family. Other than having a lot of children, there were very few accidents. There were hundreds of large clans with a main branch population, and basically nothing unexpected happened. Feng Fei, his accident this time could be considered the most serious incident among all the children. Even a family as blessed as the Song family had lost 2 children. The strangeness of the Feng family was in the karma that Qiao Jin saw now. The Feng family had a powerful formation master. For so many years, they had been borrowing the luck of other families. This created a thick protective shell for the Feng family's descendants and the family's fortune, isolating them from any danger. Until Feng Fei, he was stained with Qiao Jin's karma. Even a big family like the Feng family couldn't stop it. Death was her final destination. Because of the Feng family's luck, she was only paralyzed for a few years. In other words, the Feng family was like a group of leeches attached to the major families in the capital, sucking the blood of others to fatten themselves. The array master of the Feng family would definitely notice that something was wrong, and then, they would probably find their way to her soon. Chapter 96. Didn't they have to pay a price for doing these things? Of course, they did. The Feng family's method of borrowing luck was fundamentally different from Song Yanqing's swapping of life providences. They could also use this method to spread the consequences of borrowing someone else's luck. The Feng family had probably done a lot of shady things in private. Did Song Yanqing's life chart exchange have something to do with the Feng family? Qiao Jin thought quietly for a while and quickly abandoned this idea. Life chart exchange and borrowing luck couldn't be compared. If the Feng family dared to do this, no matter how powerful their luck was, it couldn't stop them. Just as she was thinking, she felt a special movement outside. She walked over and opened the door. When she went downstairs, she saw a handsome man coming in. He was tall and well-proportioned, wearing a black custom-made suit, which showed his outstanding figure. His face was cold, and his aura was strong. He was similar to the Mu family's father and son. When he walked in, all the servants greeted him respectfully, "Young master." He walked in a hurry and simply said, "Prepare some food for me." His voice was low and magnetic. The servant took the order and left. He also walked upstairs. He probably felt something. When he went upstairs, he suddenly looked up and met Qiao Jin's eyes. Mu Qizhi paused for about 3 seconds and then said, "Qiao Jin?" Qiao Jin politely replied, "Yes, hello." After being in the Mu family for so many days, Mu Qizhi finally appeared. The eldest brother of the Mu family was also the most outstanding man. Because he was very capable at a young age, he had been helping Mu Zhenming with his foreign business. It was common for him to go on business trips, and he rarely came back. Mu Qizhi didn't say much. He nodded to Qiao Jin and then walked in the opposite direction. His room was far away from Qiao Jin. This eldest brother looked calmer than the twins, and his experience was not comparable to the twins. Sure enough, people who had begun to control power were different from the brothers who were still struggling in school. Since she had already seen him, there was nothing else to pay attention to. Qiao Jin returned to her room. The notifications on the Cat Treasure Network kept coming in. Only when a buyer sent a message would it beep non-stop. Qiao Jin guessed who it was and walked over to take a look. Anonymous buyer, "I feel hollowed out. JPG, Hu Wei invited me to his house yesterday, but I didn't go. Today, a female corpse appeared near his house. I'm a little scared." Lin Sai felt cold all over, but he didn't dare to tell anyone. 2 days ago, she didn't take Qiao Jin's words seriously and went to the milk tea shop as usual. Coincidentally, her parents had gone on a trip for the past 2 days and were not at home. It was supposed to be the time for her to put on an act. Then, Hu Wei finally invited her to his house. Logically speaking, a young girl's emotions should be restless. She already had a good impression of Hu Wei. If it was any other time, she might have really agreed. But yesterday, she had suddenly thought of her fortune-telling. Her remaining superstition had caused her to lie and say that she had something to do and couldn't go, so she went home. At that time, Hu Wei didn't say anything. But the next day, a corpse appeared near his house. If Lin Sai hadn't seen Hu Wei's address when he was receiving a package, she might not have thought much about it when she saw the news. But it was such a coincidence that the corpse was near Hu Wei's house. She had also rejected Hu Wei's invitation yesterday. Of course, a normal person wouldn't suspect Hu Wei. But she had just been told by a fortune-teller that Hu Wei was a murderer. Her rationality collapsed. She only had doubts in her heart. She felt a little guilty when she was alone at home. She asked her classmates to accompany her, but she didn't know who to tell. She was so anxious that she could only harass the customer service. Chapter 97. Xiao Jin was not surprised by this situation. She sat in front of the computer leisurely and took out the notes that Song Yanqing had prepared for her. She began to write quickly. About 10 minutes later, she slowly began to reply. Today, oh. When Lin Sai saw the word oh, her blood rushed to her head. She was already worried, but this customer service attitude was simply unacceptable. Anonymous buyer XXX, don't your shop care about after-sales service? Today, dear, we usually don't care about after-sales service. Even if I do, I'm afraid you won't be willing. Anonymous buyer XXX. Lin Sai was a little confused. She didn't know what to do now. At this moment, she suddenly saw her phone ring. It was normal for the phone to ring. When she saw the name, Lin Sai almost fainted. Hu Wei. She looked at the computer screen and was a little confused. Her phone rang a few times, and even the female classmate looked at her strangely. Why didn't you pick up the call? It was strange. Yesterday, she felt that Hu Wei was the understanding flower in her heart. Today, she felt a chill in her heart. Changes in mood always came quickly. She was not willing to pick up Hu Wei's call now. However, there was no reason not to pick up. Lin Sai's fingers trembled as she picked up the call. Hello. Her voice was slightly trembling, but it was hard to tell if one didn't listen carefully. Hu Wei's voice was very bright. Are you alone at home? Can I come over to play with you? Lin Sai. No. Her mind quivered. Big brother, we're not familiar with each other. Why did you suddenly come to my house? She said so decisively. Hu Wei was silent for a moment, then slowly said, why not? Listening carefully, his voice sounded a little sinister. Lin Sai said, I have a relative at home today. It's really inconvenient. The female classmate looked at her strangely. Didn't you say that there's no one at home today? You asked me to accompany you? Lin Sai, why did you say it out loud? Her voice was neither loud nor soft, but Hu Wei heard it. After a while, he suddenly laughed. Is that so? Xiaoxi, you're very strange. Usually, Hu Wei liked to call her Xiaoxi. It made her heart feel as sweet as honey. However, today, this form of address made her feel suffocated. Her scalp went numb, and the ominous premonition grew stronger and stronger. Hu Wei did not seem right. The doorbell suddenly rang from outside, and Lin Sai was startled. The female classmate said again, the takeout I ordered is here. She got up and was about to open the door when Lin Sai thought that she was a little nervous. Hu Wei didn't even know where she lived. At this moment, a message popped up on the computer screen. The beeping sound was very obvious. Lin Sai raised his head. Today, don't open the door. The 3 words were clear and obvious. Lin Sai's pupils dilated. He hung up the phone abruptly and ran to the living room to grab the female classmate who was about to open the door. He covered her mouth at once and cold sweat came out. Don't open it. The female student mumbled and turned her head to struggle. She signaled Lin Sai with her eyes. What are you doing? Lin Sai looked at the old security door, his head throbbing. Earlier on the phone, she seemed to have heard the echo of the doorbell. Hu Wei, it was Hu Wei. Hu Wei was right outside her house. How did he know my address? Chapter 98. Even if Lin Sai wanted to develop a relationship with Hu Wei, she wasn't so blind as to tell him everything. Moreover, Hu Wei hadn't been here for long, so he didn't ask Lin Sai where she lived. What happened today was too strange. Lin Sai didn't dare to open the door. She dragged the female classmate back to the bedroom and closed the bedroom door. She was so anxious that tears were about to fall. I can't open the door, I can't open the door. Hu Wei is outside. The female classmate widened her eyes. Isn't Hu Wei the little brother you like? Why didn't you open the door when he came? Lin Sai said. How could she say it? Could she say that she had divined that Hu Wei was a murderer and was now suffering retribution? She turned to look at the computer. The words on the screen were so obvious that it should make one's heart turn cold. How did this customer service know that someone was knocking on her door? Did they install a camera at home? The strange thing was that Lin Sai didn't feel afraid of this customer service. It was as if it was reasonable for the other party to have some magical means. She only said anxiously, "Don't speak, don't open the door. There are surveillance cameras in our corridor. He won't dare to smash the door. I'll tell you why later." Then, she sat down and crazily harassed the customer service. Anonymous buyer XXX. Is he outside my house? Big boss, please save my dog life. Anonymous buyer XXX. Why did he suddenly come looking for me? Did I do something wrong? Woo woo. Today, why did you let him know that there was no one in your house? Lin Sai's heart turned cold. Yes, she seemed to have inadvertently said that there was no one in her house yesterday. So Hu Wei had his eyes on her. Lin Sai couldn't wait to summon her parents, who were still on vacation, back. After all, she was a girl in her 3rd year of high school. He couldn't force her. This Hu Wei was a sinister and vicious person. His hands were stained with a few lives, so he was suspicious to begin with. He knew that Lin Sai liked him, so when Lin Sai didn't go to his house yesterday, he was puzzled. He definitely didn't know that Lin Sai knew that he might be a murderer, but Lin Sai's phone call just now exposed him. For no reason, Lin Sai suddenly changed from a girl who liked him to someone who was extremely afraid of him. Did she know something? She even lied to him. Qiao Jin watched as Hu Wei's life providence changed crazily. He knew that Hu Wei would not be able to escape death the moment he opened the door today. In the end, he knocked on the door and told her not to open it. Anonymous buyer XXX. Boss, I was wrong. What can I do now? Sob. Should I call the police? Today, what's the use of calling the police? He's just loitering outside the door and hasn't done anything. Calling the police will only make him realize that something's wrong. Calling the police was definitely a dead end, unless Hu Wei really did something like trespassing. Today, let's make up for the karmic fate set meal. Anonymous buyer XXX. At the critical moment, although Lin Sai felt that Qiao Jin was taking the opportunity to blackmail him, but, today, you can choose not to kiss me. Anonymous buyer XXX. Replenish. Compared to his life, what was money? Lin Sai quickly bought a new life calamity set meal. The price of 299 yuan was actually not considered expensive. If Hu Wei was really a murderer and she escaped death today, the original price of 2,999 yuan would be worth it. He was about to lose his life, so what was the point of having money? The female classmate was shocked to see that Lin Sai was still thinking about buying things on Marabao at this time. Lin Sai, are you crazy? Chapter 99. Lin Sai was the one who asked her to sleep over tonight. She said that no one at home was afraid. Why wasn't Lin Sai afraid in the past? Moreover, everyone knew that Lin Sai liked Hu Wei. Why was she still shopping for cat treasures when Hu Wei didn't let anyone in? Was she playing hard to get? The female classmate didn't understand. Lin Sai turned her head and said, "Don't make a fuss. I'll tell you later." She paid and anxiously waited for Qiao Jin's reply. Today, just don't open the door. He will leave. For a long time, there was no movement outside the door. After a while, the female classmate's takeout arrived. The delivery guy pressed the doorbell. Today, you can open the door. Lin Sai hurriedly opened the door and snatched the takeout from the delivery guy's hands. The delivery guy couldn't even catch up. He was a little confused. Lin Sai said to the female classmate, "Hurry up and eat. Don't go out tonight." The female classmate saw her flustered expression and was a little worried. "What's wrong? You seem to have gone crazy tonight." Lin Sai said, "Don't ask." Female classmate, "Didn't you say that you would tell me later?" Anonymous buyer XXX. What should I do next? Will the police catch him? Do I still have to go to class tomorrow? Anonymous buyer XXX. I'm afraid that after I leave home, he will be waiting at my door when I come back. Today, act according to the circumstances. Anonymous buyer XXX. Act according to the circumstances. Anonymous buyer XXX. Don't be like this. I paid for it. Today, if I really wanted to buy your life, do you think a few hundred yuan would be enough? Act according to the circumstances. Today, trust the police uncle. Anonymous buyer XXX. No, she just didn't believe it. Unknowingly, Lin Sai didn't even realize that she had completely believed Qiao Jin's words and that Hu Wei was a murderer. She was about to break out in cold sweat and spent the night in fear. Of course, just based on the ability that Qiao Jin had just shown, it was enough to convince people. Lin Sai had installed a surveillance room in her house. She knew Hu Wei's every move very well. This was too scary. The next day, Qiao Jin woke up early in the morning and went downstairs to see Mu Qizhi eating downstairs. Mu Zilian and Mu Zichu were also there. Compared to their usual rowdiness, the twins were much quieter in front of their big brother today. All three of them looked at her. The nanny served her breakfast. When Qiao Jin walked over and pulled out a chair to sit down, the cold and handsome Mu Qizhi suddenly said sternly, "It's polite to at least say good morning to your three brothers." Qiao Jin, Mu Qilian instantly revealed an expression as if he was watching a good show. He wanted to see how Qiao Jin would address Mu Qizhi. Mu Zichu raised his head and looked at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. Qizhi, Qichu, Qi Lian, good morning. Mu Qizhi, Mu Zilian gave him a thumbs up. Awesome. Mu Zichu's expression didn't change. Obviously, this was within his expectations. Mu Qizhi's cold face became even more serious. It's big brother, second brother, third brother. When he spoke, he always gave people a dignified attitude. It was easy for people to be afraid. In comparison, Mu Zhenming was gentler than him. Qiao Jin sat down and pulled his breakfast. Aya, it's all the same, all the same. Mu Qizhi obviously paid more attention to this. He looked at Qiao Jin with a sharp gaze. It's not the same. Big brother is big brother. Mu Zilian took the opportunity to complain. She even calls Dad Zhenming. Qiao Jin glanced at him. Mu Zilian snorted and rolled his eyes. Chapter 100. Mu Qizhi was even more puzzled when he heard this. Since you've entered this family, you're also mother's daughter. Naturally, you're a member of this family. We're all family. Qiao Jin poked at the bowl and chopsticks. Yes, we're all family. Qizhi, don't mind such small things. Mu Qizhi, Mu Qi hurriedly pointed his chopsticks at his elder brother's head without a trace. He indicated that Qiao Jin's brain wasn't right. Mu Qizhi finally retracted his gaze and ate his breakfast. After Qiao Jin finished his breakfast, he stood up and said, "I'm done eating. Everyone, take your time. I'm going to class." Mu Zichu suddenly asked Qiao Jin, "Do you know Fengfei He?" Qiao Jin instantly turned around. "Is it the Fengfei He you mentioned who got into a car accident yesterday?" Mu Qizhi also turned his gaze over. Mu Zilian also said in surprise, "Fengfei He got into a car accident. Ayo, that's really strange. Is she dead?" Mu Zilian's words were not very pleasant to hear. It was clear that he didn't like Fengfei He. It was more or less the same. Fengfei He liked Mu Zichu and was almost always by Mu Zichu's side. She didn't like the arrogant and unruly Mu Zilian. It would be strange if Mu Zilian liked her. Mu Qizhi opened his mouth to stop him. "Qi Lian, have some sense of propriety." Mu Zilian snorted coldly and didn't dare to continue speaking. Mu Zichu only looked at Qiao Jin. "You don't know Fengfei He, right?" Qiao Jin waved his hand. "Of course I don't know her. It has nothing to do with me. It's really sad that she got into a car accident at such a young age. Ari, I'm going to class. Bye-bye, everyone." She left immediately. Mu Zilian looked at Mu Zichu and said, "Why are you asking her about Fengfei He? How is she qualified to know Fengfei He? Isn't that woman's nose pointed to the sky?" Mu Qizhi also received the news of Fengfei He's accident, but he didn't have much contact with the Feng family. He only asked, "Is it serious?" Muzichu nodded. "I'll have to be bedridden for a few years to recover." Musilian gasped. "It's that serious?" Muzichu nodded and did not say anything else. He vaguely felt that Xiao Jin knew something, but he didn't want to ask. After a day of classes, the news of Fengfei his car accident spread throughout the campus. Everyone felt that it was a pity that something like this had happened to such an outstanding and perfect school belle. There were even people who spontaneously organized to see Fengfei he. Of course, it was unknown how many of them were there to watch the fun. When Xiao Jin finished school, she noticed that someone was following her at the school gate. The person leaned against a black car, seemingly casual. Under the lowered brim of the hat, the exposed white neck was full of strange black tattoos. It was in the shape of a black phoenix. His eyes were staring at her. Others might not be able to feel it, but Xiao Jin's senses were sharp. This person was coming for her. She hooked her lips and pretended that she didn't see anything. She got in the car and left the school. Her phone began to beep. She turned it on and saw that her only business had a follow-up. The buyer missed her and left a message. "Thank you, Master, for saving my life in time. Thank you, Master. If I can see you, I will definitely kowtow to you." Xiao Jin smiled. Hu Wei was arrested. The police's action was actually very fast. The news spread throughout their school. After Lin Sai learned that he was really a murderer, she almost knelt down on the spot. After returning home, the first thing she did was to praise Xiao Jin. If it weren't for the store's restrictions, she would have directly given Xiao Jin a crown. Chapter 101. Hu Wei's arrest had something to do with Lin Sai. When he asked Lin Sai out the day before yesterday, it was out of his expectations that Lin Sai didn't go. In other words, she ruined his plan. He was an outsider and killed people purely for fun. Before he came to Lin Sai's place, he had already taken 2 lives. There were always people in this world who didn't like the world. They didn't need any reason. Hu Wei didn't succeed in seducing Lin Sai. He found a woman at the last minute, but in the end, there was a flaw. After the police confirmed that he was a suspect, they arrested him today. Because he was arrested directly in the milk tea shop, the news was very big. Lin Sai also received the news at school. At that moment, her entire body turned cold. If she had agreed to Hu Wei that day, she could imagine that she would have been dead. How could she not be glad? Sometimes, a person's premonition was very strange. If she hadn't suddenly thought of fortune-telling, how could she have predicted that Hu Wei was a murderer? No, she had found a fortune-telling shop that was really capable. Because of the lingering fear, she even called her parents and cried for a while. However, she didn't say that the reason for fortune-telling would be easily scolded. Her parents were extremely scared and rushed back that day. When Lin Sai returned home, she gave Xiao Jin's fortune-telling shop a good review. She even left a message for Xiao Jin crazily. Xiao Jin's reaction was very calm. "Today, it's fine as long as you're fine. Look, this is the demeanor of a master. Calm and collected. A few hundred yuan to save a small life was simply like doing charity." Now, Lin Sai was extremely impressed by Xiao Jin. Everything the master said made sense. "Missing is not as good as past. Master, can I help my parents read their fortunes?" "Today, no." She couldn't be bothered to explain, but these 4 words stunned Lin Sai. Perhaps the calamity was too great and offset something. It wouldn't be good if she continued to read it. Lin Sai's brain reacted quickly. She quickly typed a reply, okay, thank you, Master. I won't read it. I will definitely recommend others to come to Master's fortune-telling shop." Xiao Jin didn't reply. If it were any other seller, they would have to worship the buyer. But now in Lin Sai's eyes, Xiao Jin was a divine fortune teller. It was normal for a divine fortune teller to have a personality. She couldn't help but feel a little excited. This master was too accurate. However, if he wasn't a fortune teller, it wouldn't be good for him to harass this master. Moreover, since this master had opened a fortune-telling shop on the internet, he probably didn't intend to show his real face to others. Lin Sai thought for a moment. Even if her family didn't count, what about her relatives? She could recommend him to her relatives and classmates. Thinking of this, Lin Sai felt that he had contributed a little and was almost moved to tears. It was mainly because the master had saved her life, yet he had only received less than 400 yuan. Even she herself felt that it was a little unbelievable. She would feel bad if she didn't increase the master's business. Lin Sai was a surprise to Qiao Jin. He did not expect his first business deal to be so big. The price was really cheap. Even a set meal wasn't enough to offset such great luck, so when Lin Sai asked if he could read her parents' fortune, Qiao Jin directly rejected him. However, it didn't affect him much. Qiao Jin didn't have to calculate everything, but his premonition was very strong. He could pry into the fate of some unlucky people, which was close to the ability of foresight. The rest was to adapt to the situation. After dinner, when she was about to go to bed, she received a message from He Yao. He Yao, Miss Qiao, does what you said last time still count? Chapter 102. Qiao Jin's interest was piqued. He replied, "Are you talking about the demonized spiritual thoughts?" He Yao, "Yes." He Yao, "We have a problem here." She didn't say anything else but sent an address to Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin glanced at it and got up without hesitation. He put on his coat and was about to go out. At this time, almost everyone in the family was resting in their rooms. When Qiao Jin went downstairs, he happened to meet Mu Qizhi. Seeing that Qiao Jin was about to go out, Mu Qizhi frowned. "Where are you going?" Qiao Jin said naturally, "I'm going to the disco." Mu Qizhi, in Mu Qizhi's mind, there was no such thing as a disco. But it didn't mean that he didn't know what it was. There was only one person in the Mu family who often went to these places, and that was Muzilian. Mu Qizhi was not conservative, but he didn't think highly of these behaviors. Hearing this, he said in a harsh tone, "It's already 9 o'clock. Qiao Jin, yes, I know. I'll try to be back by 11. This was a very rebellious thing. The key was that Qiao Jin did it so casually as if it was a normal thing. Mu Qizhi could not bring himself to stop her from scolding or hitting her. He only looked at her back view as she left and pondered for about a minute before he slowly took out his phone and called his father. When the phone was connected, Mu Qizhi said concisely, "I think Qiao Jin is a bit rebellious." Mu Zhenming, the couple, who were on vacation in Sakura, were so happy that they didn't want to go home. Hearing their eldest son's phone call, they knew what kind of situation he was in. Mu Zhenming said casually, "She was even more rebellious a while ago. Mu Qizhi, you're considered her father in name. You should take care of her." Mu Zhenming, "Sorry, I can't do anything." Mu Qizhi, the father and son were speechless on the other side of the phone. After Qiao Jin came out, he did not disturb the driver. He took a taxi outside the villa area. The address given by He Yao was quite a distance away. When she arrived, she found that it was an area that was waiting to be developed. The tube-shaped apartments nearby were all old. The tenants here were mostly migrant workers and white-collar workers who felt that the rent was cheap. Because it was going to be demolished, most of the buildings had been moved out. Only a few buildings were still lit up. Opposite him was a brightly lit building. It was like the difference between two worlds. There were very few people in the area to be demolished. Other than the construction team, there were only some small businesses and passers-by. He Yao and the others were sitting in a small coffee shop, which was very conspicuous. When Qiao Jin walked over, He Yao's team raised their heads. Although they had been investigating Qiao Jin, this was the first time they had come into contact with Qiao Jin other than He Yao. When Cao Yikai was chasing the demonized spiritualist, he was in the same department store as Qiao Jin and did not know her. The girl who came in had her long hair tied up. She was wearing a lemon-colored checkered shirt and shorts. She was an exquisite and beautiful city girl. There was nothing special about her. However, she was fair and clean. It could be seen that she had been raised well. She had a lazy air about her that was not easy to describe. Her temperament was also very attractive. Yi Shuadai's eyes lit up. A beautiful big sister. Hua Yangming poured cold water on her. She's going to kill me. He Yarrow, don't talk first. Between them, there was an unfamiliar man's face. Chapter 103. Xiao Jin walked over and sat down. She was all smiles. Hello, it's our first time meeting. I'm Xiao Jin. He Yarrow nodded. I've already introduced you to them. In fact, there was no need for an introduction. Just based on her surface information, including the Mu family, the team members knew everything. He Yarrow introduced Cao Yikai and the others to Xiao Jin one by one. When she pointed at an unfamiliar man, she paused. Yu Xie, a new member of the team. Yu Xie was handsome. He was even more handsome than Cao Yikai and Hua Yangming. From his eyes, one could tell that he was a proud man. Hua Yangming and Cao Yikai were dressed casually, but Yu Xie was more formal. He wore a black shirt and a pair of black casual slim pants. On his wrist was an intricately made watch. It was the kind that you could tell at a glance that you couldn't afford. This man looked like a male model on the runway, a rich young master. He didn't look like a member of the team. When Xiao Jin arrived, his eyes were fixed on Xiao Jin. It wasn't a kind of interest, but a kind of resistance. He didn't look close to the other team members either. In this strange atmosphere, Yi Shuadai was the first to greet Xiao Jin enthusiastically. Hello, big sister. I'm Yi Shuadai. I'm in my second year of high school. Xiao Jin nodded. In fact, Yi Shuadai and the others were puzzled. They were still investigating Xiao Jin. They didn't know why He Yarrow would ask Xiao Jin to come over to capture a demonized spiritual reader. This made the cold Yu Xie speak first. Captain, we have a mission. Why did you ask a stranger to come over? He Yarrow smiled and looked at him. Xiao Jin is foreign aid. When this was said, the others were stunned. Xiao Jin raised her eyebrows and didn't deny He Yarrow's words. Yu Xie smiled sarcastically. What's her ability? Yi Shuadai was about to interrupt and say that she was a prophet. Xiao Jin smiled and said, I don't have any ability. I'm just here to watch the show. The others were speechless. Yu Xie was stunned. He Yarrow immediately interrupted, Xiao Jin's ability has just appeared, so it's not obvious yet. I called her here because she has something to do with today's murderer. He Yarrow turned to Xiao Jin and said, it's the serial killer who killed Tan Shuejia. He's actually a demonized psychic. If they hadn't accidentally discovered the traces of the other party's spiritual senses, it would have been difficult for the police to investigate the information. Under the situation where the imperial capital was heavily monitored, it was already unbelievable that the other party could bypass the surveillance to kill and move the corpse. That was until they caught hold of a key piece of information. After the police found out that something was wrong, the matter was handed over to the spirit group. It just so happened that He Yarrow was assigned this mission. However, the reason why He Yarrow called Xiao Jin over was definitely not that simple. She wanted to see what method Xiao Jin had to directly take away the ability of the demonized psychic master. Calculating the time, He Yarrow knew that today's matter would definitely be resolved. Xiao Jin had said that the murderer would be caught in a week. It was almost a week now. Xiao Jin nodded and asked faintly, what's the other party's ability? Hua Yangming, it ignores objects. In layman's terms, it can be seen as passing through walls. Xiao Jin directly said, an ability can't be perfect. There must be something that he can't pass through. He Yarrow agreed with her. We know, but we're still investigating. He's now in the tube opposite. If he notices that something is wrong and wants to run, we won't be able to catch him. Chapter 104. A person with the ability to pass through objects wasn't easy to catch. Yu Xie scoffed at He Yarrow's words, there are 5 of us here and we can't even catch a demonized psychic. We are the spirit group. He obviously didn't include Xiao Jin when he said there were 5 of them. Xiao Jin didn't care. He Yarrow glanced at Yu Xie. She wasn't interested in this person who had appeared out of nowhere and was obviously from a large family. It would be easy to catch a normal demonized psychic, but he has the ability to pass through objects. There are too many ways for him to escape. None of the 5 of them had the ability to stop him. The members of the spirit group were more suited for violent actions. Yu Xie continued to ask, "What did you say that this person has to do with her?" He lifted his chin towards Qiao Jin. From his expression, it was obvious that he looked down on Qiao Jin. Yi Shuadai and the others looked at each other and didn't say anything. Yu Xie had appeared out of nowhere and wasn't someone to be trifled with. Even the captain, He Yarrow, wasn't convinced, let alone Qiao Jin, who wasn't a member of the group. He Yarrow didn't even bother to look at him and said, "There is no direct relationship." Qiao Jin glanced at the five of them. He Yarrow's psychic ability was metal. She could control all metal objects in a short period of time, just like the steel bars in a concrete wall. She was the most likely to catch a demonized psychic out of the five of them. However, her destructive ability was greater and she wouldn't easily make a move for fear of causing a commotion. Yi Shuadai could control the growth of plants. Plants were her battlefield. Hua Yangming was a rare support character who could strengthen the abilities of others in a short period of time. Cao Yikai was extremely strong. Yu Xie was a rare psychic attack. He could directly cause damage to the brain and had a strong ability to defend against enemies. Of course, he couldn't control the minds of others. This wasn't something a normal wizard could do. It was a normal deity team. A psychic's abilities were very diverse and strange. Wizards were even more diverse and had all kinds of abilities. Generally speaking, their group wouldn't be bad against others. Joining Yu Xie was indeed a good choice. Unfortunately, Yu Xie looked like a thorn in his side. Especially those with strong abilities, it wasn't a good thing. A psychic's ability wasn't powerful enough to defy the heavens. There was a range to their ability. If you asked Yi Shuadai to grow plants, she could at most control one plant to attack the target or make several plants grow 1 meter at the same time. It wouldn't cause too much damage. The stronger they were, the less likely they would appear in front of others. Moreover, in modern society, there were many scientific methods to control these spiritual readers. They kept each other in check. After reading it, Qiao Jin suggested, "You can start now." "I'll wait here." He Yarrow hesitated for a moment before asking, "You're not coming with me?" Qiao Jin raised her porcelain white chin. "I don't know anything. I'll only be a burden if I go." Everyone else, that's right, if Qiao Jin's ability was foresight, then she wouldn't be able to hurt him. However, they still hadn't figured out why a demonized psychic's ability disappeared. They were suspicious but couldn't say it out loud. He Yarrow nodded and was about to start the operation when she said, "If you know where he will appear, please inform us immediately." Qiao Jin nodded and took out his phone. "Call me." He Yao, "Okay." Chapter 105. He Yarrow and the others walked towards the old apartment. The neighborhood wasn't elegant, and the old man guarding the door was just a decoration. There was no cover at all. People from all walks of life could come and go here. But after the demolition, everything would change, but it still maintained its previous appearance. He Yarrow and the others were quite eye-catching walking here, mainly because of Yu Xie. He walked like a male model on the runway, constantly glowing and attracting people's attention. Even Yi Shuadai was a little disgusted. They entered the neighborhood with the information of the demonized psychic in their hands. Yu Xie seemed to have a problem with it. "You left her there alone?" "Captain, I don't understand why you called an outsider. She's obviously useless." He Yarrow glanced at Yu Xie. "You have a problem with my decision?" Even if He Yarrow didn't want to talk to Yu Xie, she was still a captain. Her cold expression showed that she didn't want to give Yu Xie any face. Yu Xie choked and didn't say anything. He then looked at Hua Yangming. "Follow me." Hua Yangming was a support. Who didn't want a support by their side? He Yarrow interrupted his daydream. "Yangming, follow Shuadai. Ikai, you go that way." She pointed in a direction for Yu Xie. Yu Xie's face twitched, but he didn't say anything. He just looked a little unhappy and left. Cao Yikai nodded and walked in the opposite direction. Yi Shuadai rolled her eyes. "A damage dealer wants to steal my support. Shameless." Hua Yangming, He Yarrow pointed in a direction. "You guys go that way. Keep in touch." Yi Shuadai made an okay gesture. Hua Yangming nodded and followed her. He Yarrow walked towards the main entrance of the neighborhood. Xiao Jin sat in the coffee shop and looked in that direction with her chin resting on her hand. If He Yarrow wanted to catch this demonized psychic, she might be able to. She called her over because He Yarrow wanted to see her ability. She didn't know what the standards of the spirit group were. He Yarrow probably just wanted to see if she was dangerous. The spirit group should have a way to deal with a psychic that was difficult to control. She also wanted to see what He Yarrow wanted to do. She suddenly turned around and raised her hand toward the apartment building opposite her. With a gesture that no one else could understand, she faked a few times toward the apartment. She seemed to be just casually gesturing. In her eyes, the color of the world changed, and red dots appeared in her pupils. Every place where the red dots corresponded to, the tube-shaped building emitted a thin red line. They intertwined with each other in a connected manner, gradually covering the entire sky above the tube-shaped building. In the end, they overlapped, like a huge butterfly pattern spreading its wings in the sky above the building. Its antennae dragged the red lines, like a huge net, locking the building inside. However, in the eyes of others, this place had not changed at all. In a room on the 5th floor of the gloomy apartment complex, there was a figure. In Xiao Jin's eyes, the figure emitted a dark light. Through the wall, the figure was very clear. It was a demonized psychic master. He didn't seem to be aware of the danger he was in. He didn't know that there were people from the spirit group approaching him, and he seemed to be leisurely cooking something. Xiao Jin smiled and stood up. No matter what He Yarrow's goal was, she had guessed one thing right. She had to get the spirit seed of this demonized psychic. Chapter 106. He Yarrow was the first to arrive at the door of the demonized psychic. The other party was a logistics warehouse inspector. Zhao Chunfeng, an ordinary man in his 30s, was nothing out of the ordinary. He had lived here for decades. He didn't seem to have anything to do with Tan Xuejia. However, the problem was that he had killed Tan Xuejia, Ji Jiazhen, and another victim. The psychic would react to the approach of another psychic. When He Yarrow arrived at the door, Zhao Chunfeng, who was cooking in the house, suddenly stopped. He Yarrow cleared her throat and knocked on the door. "Hello, is anyone home from the property management office?" Even if the neighborhood was old, there was a property management office. However, it was useless and was basically just a decoration. He Yarrow had no choice but to pretend to be the property management office. Of course, Zhao Chunfeng didn't believe her. The house wasn't big and the kitchen door was facing the door. He could lock onto the door at a glance. He slowly put down the pot in his hand without making a sound. He Yarrow continued to knock on the door. "Hello, Mr. Zhao. Are you home? Your neighbor said that he saw you coming home. You haven't paid the water bill for this month." When she came, she had at least read the basic information and knew the rhythm of Zhao Chunfeng's daily life. Zhao Chunfeng still didn't say anything. His footsteps were slowly moving towards the bedroom. He Yarrow could only control iron, which was metal. Her hearing was normal and she couldn't see the scene in the house. Seeing that Zhao Chunfeng didn't open the door, she knew that he probably realized that something was wrong. As an ordinary person, his awareness of vigilance was too strong. This was obviously abnormal. He Yarrow frowned and raised her hand slightly. The metal door handle on the anti-theft door turned with a click and the door was instantly opened. He Yarrow kicked the door open and entered. Zhao Chunfeng entered the bedroom and immediately closed the door. He Yarrow walked over and opened her hand in the air. Bang! The metal door handle opened. Zhao Chunfeng and He Yarrow instantly came face to face. She saw this ordinary-looking man's body sink into the ground and disappear on the spot. The other party looked at her in disbelief. He Yarrow immediately said to the others through the headset, his sneaking downstairs. "Yu Xie, Cao Ikai, wait on the first floor. He can't go through the enclosed space directly. He will definitely escape from the first floor." The house was old, and there was no basement. The entire floor below was made of concrete. It was impossible for Zhao Chunfeng to travel through such a confined space. Otherwise, He would be too heaven-defying. His ability was probably to pass through objects for a short period of time, which was why he was able to pass through walls. Of course, there was the possibility that there was a basement in this kind of building. Yarrow ran downstairs as fast as she could. There was no elevator in this building, so she could only run down the stairs. When Yu Xie and the others received the news, they went to block both sides. The building was divided into 4 corners. Zhao Chunfeng could go anywhere. Hua Yangming and Yi Shuadai decided to split up and run in 2 different directions. However, the building wasn't small. When they were guarding it, there were residents watching them. At this time, they definitely couldn't use their powers. Otherwise, they would be on Weibo's hot search list. While the few of them were standing guard, Yu Xie pressed on the watch on his wrist. The dial of the watch popped up and a network opened up. A small green grid was the network world and a small red dot was shuttling through it. Yu Xie said in a low voice, "He is on the 3rd floor. He did not come down." Chapter 107. Yarrow stopped on the 3rd floor and asked, "Which house?" Yu Xie glanced at the house. "The one facing the north, the one with the best situation. There's no one inside." This kind of house had 6 households on 1 floor and was very big. If Zhao Chunfeng decided to hide, it would take some time. Yarrow asked Yu Xie, "Can you attack his brain through the wall?" Yu Xie said, "No, I can't do that." He admitted it directly, but it was the truth. If it was that strong, Zhao Chunfeng would have been forced out. Yarrow whispered, "Shuadai, control the plants to attack him and force him out." Yi Shuadai whispered, "It's a little troublesome. There's an old lady beside me, everyone." The old lady looked at Yi Shuadai curiously. "You don't live here, do you?" Yi Shuadai laughed. "Yes, I came here to play." Yarrow frowned. "It's okay. She can't see. Just let her think that you're crazy." Yi Shuadai, the captain's words were too heartless. Yes, when she controlled the plants to attack Zhao Chunfeng from inside the house, no one would be able to see her. They would only see her waving her hands like a crazy person, but since boss said so, there was nothing she could do. Yi Shuadai's face turned serious. She waved her hand and the plants grew from where she wanted them to, which was Zhao Chunfeng's room. Although her plants were not very useful, they were far away. She could control the height of a 3-story building. Yu Xie said, "He's in the room at the end of the 3rd floor, by the window of the bedroom." "He's in the south." Yi Shuadai, "Okay, I got it." Zhao Chunfeng was hiding in a room. Before he could figure out who had come to capture him, he saw a green vine suddenly grow out of the wall of the room. A crack appeared on the wall, and the green vine grew to 2 meters in an instant. With a piercing sound, it danced and whipped towards him in an instant. Zhao Chunfeng broke out in cold sweat. He did not know what this thing was. He subconsciously went through the wall and fell down the stairs. The green vine retracted into the wall, but there were already traces of growth. The wall was drilled open and it was obvious that it was not caused by normal damage. It would be hard for the person who cleaned it up. Yi Shuadai said, "I think he ran away." Yu Xie continued, "He fell to the 1st floor. Head east. He is preparing to run." Cao Ikai said in a low voice, "I'm here." Yarrow said, "Sure or die, continue to block him. Don't let him change direction. Yang Ming, go support her." Hua Yangming had just separated from Yi Shuadai. Hearing the order, he ran towards Yi Shuadai. This building was located in the middle, separated by flowers and plants. It would only take Hua Yangming a few seconds to run over. When the old lady saw Yi Shuadai, she kept waving her hands. "Daughter, what are you doing?" Yi Shuadai, "I'm practicing my dance. Grandma, I thought you were greeting someone upstairs." Hua Yangming ran over and stood beside Yi Shuadai. He grabbed her arm and closed his eyes. Yi Shuadai's ability was enhanced, and the vines could grow to 4 to 5 meters in an instant. However, he encountered a thorny problem. The 1st floor was occupied. Yi Shuadai didn't dare to make too much noise. She controlled a rattan to pass through the corridor outside. Zhao Chunfeng just came out and bumped into the rattan. He broke out in cold sweat and hurriedly changed direction. He was already on the first floor. He couldn't go down underground and he couldn't fly up. He could only go through the wall. Chapter 108. Yu Xie's spirit rose. His coming for me. He wanted to see what this demonized psychic could do. Zhao Chunfeng was a demonized psychic and a murderer. Now that he was forced into a corner, he had a violent impulse. He had been very careful when killing people, but he didn't expect to provoke such a strange person. When he first discovered his special ability, he thought he had a fortuitous encounter and that he was the only one. However, the moment he discovered He Yarrow, he knew that he was wrong. He wasn't the only one with a special ability in this world. Moreover, the sudden appearance of the vines wasn't a normal phenomenon. He could only pass through objects. When he thought of this, his face turned ugly. Because he was being chased, he looked like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. He simply steeled his heart. When he passed through a family, he saw that the people inside were eating. When the family saw him pass through the wall, they were stunned. The whole house was filled with screams. Zhao Chunfeng rushed into the kitchen, took a kitchen knife, and passed through the wall. This time, he changed direction and went in Yi Shuadai's direction. When he was upstairs, he saw a little girl behind the building. She was dressed delicately and didn't look like she was from here. It seemed like she came with that girl. Yu Xie's expression froze for a moment. Yi Shuadai, he's going for you. Yi Shuadai had used her ability repeatedly and was a little tired. She let out an ah. Hua Yangming had a bad premonition. His face was solemn. Captain, there are civilians outside. Shuadai's ability is overloaded. He Yarrow immediately said, I'm already down. Be careful. The next second, Zhao Chunfeng, who was holding a kitchen knife, came out of the wall with a ferocious expression. Yi Shuadai hadn't experienced many missions. It was her first time seeing a demonized psychic rushing at her with a kitchen knife. She was a little stunned. Hua Yanming's pupils shrank. He grabbed Yi Shuadai and retreated. Then, Zhao Chunfeng saw the old lady next to Yi Shuadai. His target was clear. He immediately rushed towards the old lady. When the old lady saw him holding a kitchen knife, she was also shocked. She screamed, Aya, Aya. Her legs trembled, and she couldn't run anymore. Hua Yangming reached out to grab the old granny. Yi Shuadai reached out to stop Zhao Chunfeng with her vines, but blood gushed out from her nose. The moment the vines grew wildly, Zhao Chunfeng had already run to the edge of the building. Kaya! It was as if he had stepped on a minefield. He screamed, and the kitchen knife fell to the ground. Then, he curled up. The back of his hand, which was the first to come into contact with the edge, seemed to have been scalded by something. Hot steam rose from his body. At that moment, Yi Shuadai and Hua Yangming saw something shocking. The dense red threads seemed to extend from the sky and were pulled by a huge butterfly in midair. They locked the building behind Zhao Chunfeng, including Zhao Chunfeng, inside. Just now, he had touched the edge of the red line. This scene only lasted for an instant. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. Before they could describe the shock in their hearts, very light footsteps came from behind them. Yi Shuadai and Hua Yangming turned their heads. Qiao Jin was standing there, smiling faintly. Her body was cold and delicate as if it was illuminated by the moonlight. Her skin was so white that it glowed. She stood there with Qing Chen, who was uninvolved. Chapter 109. At that moment, Yi Shuadai and Hua Yangming felt an indescribable shock. It was as if they had seen a light at that moment. Yes, no one in this world could shine. At that moment, Qiao Jin's body gave them this illusion. Are you guys okay? He Yarrow, Yu Xie, and Cao Yikai ran over. They looked at Zhao Chunfeng, who was howling in pain on the ground with strange emotions. The old lady next to him was paralyzed on the ground in shock. Hua Yangming quickly reacted and went to help her up. He Yarrow saw Qiao Jin and immediately asked, "Why are you here?" Qiao Jin smiled innocently. "I told you, I'm here to watch the show." She acted as if everything in front of her had nothing to do with her. He Yarrow was suspicious. Yi Shuadai and Hua Yangming also couldn't tell if what they saw was an illusion. The scene of the butterfly pulling the red thread was too shocking. It only lasted for a second. Yi Shuadai and Hua Yangming didn't know if their eyes were playing tricks on them. They could only remain silent. Qiao Jin didn't do anything special. They didn't know if it was Qiao Jin who did it. In just one move, Zhao Chunfeng suddenly fell into pain. What was Qiao Jin's ability? They were a little confused. Yu Xie walked over and added fuel to the fire. He attacked Zhao Chunfeng's brain. Zhao Chunfeng's brain felt like it was being pierced by thousands of needles. He fell into a deeper level of pain. Ah! He screamed and fainted. Their actions had already attracted the attention of the people in the community. Fortunately, many people had moved away because of the demolition. However, Zhao Chunfeng had walked out of a family's room just now, and they had clearly seen him. He Yarrow had to call someone to clean up the mess. Cao Yikai pulled Zhao Chunfeng up as if he was dragging an animal. Zhao Chunfeng had killed several people. Even if they handed him over to the spirit team, he wouldn't be able to live. They had to answer to the public. Yi Shuadai collapsed due to exhaustion and was caught by He Yarrow. She had a nosebleed, but other than that, she was fine. He Yarrow said to Qiao Jin, "We're bringing Zhao Chunfeng back. Do you want to send us back?" Qiao Jin smiled and shook his head. He Yarrow nodded. She paid attention to Qiao Jin's actions and didn't notice anything unusual. They brought Zhao Chunfeng back. The others would take care of the rest. He Yarrow asked Qiao Jin to leave early to avoid attracting the attention of the team members. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain. Qiao Jin nodded and left. A wisp of black qi lingering on her fingertip. She had set up an array, so she did not need to come into direct contact with Zhao Chunfeng. She had also taken the spirit seed. The Zhao Chunfeng that he would bring back later was just an ordinary person. He's dead. For demonized psychic masters like them who had been discovered, only death awaited them when they were brought back. Not long after Qiao Jin left, Zhao Chunfeng, who had been brought to the car, woke up. He looked at the strange men and women who were holding him and said with a painful expression, "There are always people in this world who deserve to die. God gave me the ability to take revenge." He Yarrow and the others glanced at him. Yu Xie said coldly, "You should believe in the law and the police." "The law?" Zhao Chunfeng laughed hoarsely. "If it didn't happen to you, how can you judge whether I'm right or wrong?" Unfortunately, no one answered him. Chapter 110. When he got home, Mu Chiji didn't rest. He looked at the clock on the wall. It said 11 o'clock, and it was indeed 11 o'clock. However, he seemed to be working in the living room. When he saw Qiao Jin, he didn't say anything and went back to his room. He seemed a little angry, but this was not within Qiao Jin's consideration. She went back to her room. Zhao Chunfeng's demonized spiritual thoughts turned into a wisp of gas and went into the Mu family's villa again. She knew when she saw Tan Shuejia's black aura. Some things in this world were interconnected. If Tan Shuejia didn't court death, she wouldn't have died so quickly. She had to pay back the life debt she owed. If Qiao Jin didn't appear, this case would take another month to solve. She smiled. The next thing would probably be the Feng family's business. He suspected her quickly, but she didn't know if he had the ability to see through her. No spiritual seed. When they tested again, He Yarrow and the others found that there was no spiritual seed in Zhao Chunfeng's body. She couldn't help but frown and ask Yi Shuadai, when Qiao Jin suddenly appeared, did she get close to Zhao Chunfeng? Yi Shuadai shook her head. Hua Yangming also said with certainty, she was behind us. She didn't get close to Zhao Chunfeng at all. He didn't know if what he saw was an illusion. Hua Yangming hesitated and didn't say it out loud. She didn't get close to him. He Yarrow also fell into a complicated mystery. At present, they were sure that Qiao Jin had the ability to foresee. It was already unbelievable for a spiritual psyche master to have such an ability. It was impossible for her to have other abilities. If she could seize other people's spiritual thoughts, it would be fine. But without direct contact, Qiao Jin could seize other people's spiritual thoughts out of thin air? It was impossible. He Yarrow had seen so many spiritual psyche masters and read so much information, but she had never heard of a spiritual psyche master with dual abilities. Besides, what was the use of Qiao Jin taking the demonized spiritual seed? But she said herself that she needed the demonized spiritual seed. He Yarrow recalled that she had once said that rather than taking back the spirit group headquarters, she would rather give it to her. Could it be that there was someone in the spirit group headquarters who knew how to use the demonized spirit seed? That was a matter of the headquarters, and they had no right to interfere. Yu Xie saw He Yarrow's expression and sneered, "We saw him going through walls with our own eyes. Now that we don't have the demonized spirit seed, how are we going to explain ourselves?" The spirit group would know about this matter and would send people to bring Zhao Chunfeng back. He Yarrow had yet to resolve the previous matter, and now that another one had appeared, the spirit group would definitely pursue this matter. Hua Yangming said, "What can we say? We can only tell them the truth. The disappearance of the spirit seed is not something we can control. It has nothing to do with us." Even if he suspected Qiao Jin, did he have any evidence? There was no evidence that Qiao Jin had taken away the demonic spirit seed. At that time, it was the spirit group that had to worry about it, not them. Yu Xie glanced at Hua Yangming. He knew very well that this group of people didn't welcome him after he arrived. There were many things that they didn't tell him before, including the matter with Qiao Jin. She suddenly appeared and left, and this group of people didn't even give her an explanation. He Yarrow looked at Yu Xie and said to the others, "Ikai is right. Just tell us the truth. It's up to the headquarters how to investigate." Everyone replied, "Yes." Chapter 111. When Zhao Chunfeng was brought back, he was first interrogated. Although he was a demonized spiritual reader, there was always a reason for demonization. He Yarrow and the others needed to record the reason. Now that Zhao Chunfeng had lost his spiritual seed, he would most likely be handed over to the police. Zhao Chunfeng was locked up in the special monitoring room of their team. Hua Yangming went to interrogate him. "Why did you kill innocent people?" "Innocent?" When Zhao Chunfeng heard that Hua Yangming had come to interrogate him, a mocking sneer appeared on his face. "If you investigate the information of those women, you should know that they are not innocent." Hua Yangming lowered his eyes. "I know, but they did not break the law. That is not a reason for you to take revenge." So my parents died in vain." Zhao Chunfeng grabbed the iron door of the interrogation room and approached Hua Yangming. His face was twisted. "They are innocent, so you take human lives as a joke. My parents were just street vendors. They did not provoke them, but they were beaten to death by the people they called. And then, they are the culprits, but nothing happened to them. What do you want me to do?" Hua Yanming's expression was calm as he listened quietly to Zhao Chunfeng's secret past. Tan Xuejia, Ji Jiazhen, and another girl knew each other. They graduated from the same vocational college. At that time, because of their beauty, they had many suitors. Zhao Chunfeng's parents were street vendors. On a peaceful night, they had a conflict with Tan Xuejia's group. It was just a stain on a piece of clothing. The couple had apologized properly but was insulted. In their agitation, they retorted without thinking. At that time, Tan Xuejia's suitors fought with the couple in order to stand up for Tan Xuejia. At that time, the indifference was terrifying. Not only did Tan Xuejia enjoy the feeling of having hundreds of followers, but she did not seem to think it was wrong when she saw the couple gradually lose their breath under the attacks of the suitors. Later, in the hospital, the wife died of serious injuries. Zhao Chunfeng's father could not take the blow and died soon after. The attackers were sentenced, but they were all underage. Tan Xuejia and the rest did not do anything. They only watched and criticized. After that, they dropped out of school and disappeared for decades. It took Zhao Chunfeng a long time to find out the truth about his parents' deaths. To him, learning about his parents' death while studying in a faraway place was simply a nightmare for him. "When I saw her that day, they even grabbed a girl and threw her to the side of the road. The smile on Zhao Chuanfeng's face was filled with sarcasm and loathing. Can you expect a group of beasts to become humans when they grow up? I just wanted to avenge my parents. What did I do wrong? Of course, it was wrong for me to kill them, but I don't think it was wrong for me to kill them. I was caught, and this is my responsibility. I don't care what I have to bear, but you can't say that I did something wrong. Hua Yangming quietly recorded all of this and sighed in his heart. Then, he asked a key question: when did your ability appear? At this moment, Zhao Chunfeng knew that he couldn't escape, so he simply confessed, the night I found their tracks, I tracked them down for many years before I found out that they were now in the capital. That night was the first time I saw them. When I went back, I accidentally found out that my body could pass through objects. Chapter 112. He had been too excited at the time. His mind was filled with thoughts of killing. At first, he thought that God was helping him, so he was the only special one. Of course, the first thing he did was to take revenge. Then, he thought of other things. When Tan Shuejia and the others were killed one by one, he didn't expect to be caught so quickly. Then, he found that there was a group of people with extraordinary abilities like him. He knew that he wasn't the only lucky one. This world was fair. If someone used this ability to do something wrong, there would naturally be someone to correct it. Although he was a little annoyed, when he thought about how his parents' death had been avenged, he felt happy and wouldn't worry so much. Hua Yangming was a little silent. The case had to be handed over to the police for trial. It wasn't something they could manage. Zhao Chuanfeng's ability appeared too quickly and disappeared too abruptly. Generally, there would always be a buffer period for a psychic's ability to appear. He seemed to have reacted very quickly. Perhaps the thought of killing someone was too strong. Where did the psychic's ability come from? This had been a mystery since ancient times. It wasn't something they could explore now. They only needed to know that there were only a few people with abilities. It might be lucky, or it might be a disaster. Xiao Jin woke up early in the morning. Only Mu Qizhi was downstairs. She walked down and asked very naturally, "Qizhi, where are Qi Lian and Qi Chu?" At that time, Mu Qizhi's hand that was holding the knife and fork paused. After a long while, he seemed to have overcome himself and slowly replied, "They didn't come back last night. They said they had something to do." Xiao Jin was a little surprised. They didn't come back last night after Fei Fei and Zhenming left. This is really bad. Qizhi, you and Zhenming have to discipline them. Mu Qizhi, you're the one who should be disciplined the most. He was a calm man and couldn't lower himself to the same level as a little girl. Then, until breakfast, the two of them were speechless. Xiao Jin finished eating and got up. She smiled and said goodbye to Mu Qizhi. For Xiao Jin, going to class was a good way to kill time, so much so that the day passed very quickly in her eyes. However, today was different from the past. As soon as she got into the car, she realized that the driver was Mu Zillion. "You go home after school every day. Don't you have any goals in life?" The first thing Mu Zillion said when he saw her was to ridicule her. Xiao Jin smiled and said, "Like you, who didn't go home for a whole night and got beaten up by Fei Fei and Zhenming?" Mu Zillion, bullshit, Dad and Mom never hit people. But he would make him kneel. After saying this, he was still a little worried. Big brother never talks too much. You have to be a person who doesn't talk too much. When Mom and Dad come back and ask you, just say that we go home every day, okay? Besides, do you know why I didn't go back last night? He rolled his eyes. "Come with me." Xiao Jin tilted her head and thought for a moment. "Okay." Mu Zillion snorted. "Look at your character. People who don't know will think that I'm going to sell you. Don't worry, no one wants you." Although he said that, he drove his sports car and took Xiao Jin to a place. It was a relatively hidden clubhouse. He took Xiao Jin into a luxurious private room. As soon as they entered, they saw a bunch of people kneeling, their faces unrecognizable. Mu Zillion nodded at them. "Look, these bastards. Are they the ones who tricked you into taking drugs that night? Are they all?" You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.